Hamatakwepe, Mimalakota.
Because I can use you to prove to the raging atheist that atheism is foolishness.
Yeah, that's been the overwhelming consensus, actually. Trust me, on the inside, I was screaming.
Oh, I'm sure. Do it with Arn Ra. I mean, he would be the perfect person to talk about evolution with you, I think.
Well, I'd love to talk to Arn Ra about evolution and creation and stuff, but I just don't think it would go too well based on the fact that he's always interrupting his opponents.
Les not that bright. He's just not that bright.
So welcome, Sai. If you want to give a brief introduction of yourself, I'm sure folks here are fairly familiar with you.
Well, thanks for having me on. And I'm a retired research scientist.
Me and you gonna be best friends.
What's up, you heathens and demons, you sinners and saints, you beautiful, blasphemous people? Welcome back to Seeing Red on the Rage. We're not sure if we're having like a Twitter DM issue, or if maybe Scientist Mel got busy or something happened. But as you can see, Scientist Mel isn't here. Could be a miscommunication with the scheduling. We're going to give her a few minutes and then we'll probably look at something. Hopefully she'll come in. But what's up, everybody? Ali is here. Before I throw it over to Ali, I've got a couple announcements. So welcome anyone that might be watching on Facebook. This is the first time I'm streaming to both platforms at the same time. I never put anything on my Facebook, so I decided I'll just start streaming to them as I'm streaming to YouTube. So if you're on Facebook, I'm hitting shit. If you're on Facebook watching this, welcome. This is my first time doing that on Facebook. I have a brand new Patreon slide. We'll run that at the end of the show tonight. But I just made it today, so there's a few edited videos already. That's the old ones. I want to welcome my new patrons, Twisted Skeptic, Vindictive Bat, and Will Warman. Will, I'm not sure. When you showed up, I apologize for not having you on the slide. I just noticed you there today. But welcome. Thank you guys for your support. Saturday night, Ali will be slipping into her moderator role as Sky Out returns. He has made his big return, and he'll be on the show Saturday night. He wants to talk to your boy. Ali's going to moderate, so that'll be a Seeing Red episode, me and Sky Out. And then tomorrow I will be releasing two very personal edited videos, My Code and Becoming Me. My Code, I'll release that in the morning, and then I'll be premiering Becoming Me probably around 10:30 tomorrow evening Eastern time. So those are my announcements. What's up, Ali? I think we might have either a scheduling issue or something came up. Was really excited to have Scientist Mel on tonight.
Actually, whoops, I tried to unmute and it was like, no, you're not going to do that because you're also trying to send a DM. She just got back to me. She said she'll be right in. It might have been a Twitter DM delay issue, but she just got back to me on Twitter. She'll be in shortly.
Sweet.
So, but yeah, I put out an announcement on the Discord server earlier. We're going to talk about it more in depth on Sticks and Stonehenge, but my big announcement is, so a co-host that we kicked out back in August did some really, really shitty things. Very predatory behavior, sexual harassment of trans women, and the grooming of a 16-year-old girl that took the place over about 2 years. So we're going to be doing a stream here on The Rage on Seeing Red sometime in the next couple of weeks after the victim, who is a personal friend of ours, comes out and tells their story on Sticks and Stonehenge. This is a person that we kicked out for being anti-Semitic from our particular co-hosting before Wolf came in and took his place. But we found out just a couple days ago that it turns out he has a much bigger history of problematic behavior than we thought. If you're a member of our Discord, again, there's a full announcement detailing who it is and what the concerns are. I don't want to put out too much public on YouTube channels and stuff before the victim gets to tell her story herself, because I want her to be able to tell it in her own words. But the announcement that I put out on Discord, I went over the phrasing with her and everything before I did that. So if you guys want to kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about, we have it over on Discord. Welcome, Scientist Mel. You walked into quite the awkward conversation.
That's okay. Completely fine. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah,
We're
what's
glad
up?
to have you back. The last conversation you came in was pretty heavy too. We were talking about consent. Funny that this stuff comes out right around the time we have you on again.
You know, it's fine. Consent is an important topic, and it's okay to kind of go back through what that means every once in a while.
Yeah, we're like I said, we're going to be doing a stream particularly on this person because this person was at one point a co-host of our channel. He hasn't been associated, not this channel, of my channel with Callan, Sticks and Stonehenge. He hasn't been associated with us for almost a year. We kicked him out back in August for being an anti-Semite, but again, allegations have come out, sexual harassment of multiple women and grooming a 16-year-old girl for 2 years and then begging for nudes 4 days after she turned 18. So, like, lots of big problems there.
You know, I'm just going to keep saying, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty. Ali was telling me about it a couple days ago and then yesterday, and it's like, this dude is just, and it's like he doesn't even see it. He's totally trying to dismiss it.
Yeah, and he keeps trying to use his mental illness as an excuse, and it's like, no, dude, like, that doesn't work. So again, we'll go over the whole thing when we do our stream. I want to give the victim a chance to actually tell her story in her own way, but she wants us to put this fucker on blast everywhere, so that's what's happening.
Right. You know, YouTube is down right now.
It's we've got 18 people in according to YouTube.
Really? Okay, that's cool.
It's been up and down all day, pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah, I know we are competing with modern, or was supposed to be competing with Modern Day Debate, and Shannon Q looked like she was live, but
oh, okay.
yeah, hopefully you are hearing us chat, and this is still going.
Well, people are responding as though they're hearing you. Somebody was saying getting fancy with dual streaming. Gaelic Knox is in the house. They just
what's
got a
up,
new
Gaelic
tablet.
Knox?
So we're supposed to be getting the emotes that I need to actually finish making my videos pretty soon. Yeah, welcome back to the channel, Scientist Mill. You're an amazing science communicator, and when we were chatting over Twitter, you had said that you were interested in talking about scientific literacy and communication and such.
Yes, we can talk about that. That's cool. There's so much stuff we can talk about. It's really just, what do you guys want to talk about? But yeah, we can talk about science literacy. We're working fine. Cool. I can't pull up the side chat for some reason, but that's okay.
It's perfectly fine. I'm watching it, so if there's any questions for you or anything, I'll make sure to grab them.
All right, awesome. Okay, so science literacy, that's the whole reason why I started my science communication work here. I started on Periscope, and then I just started uploading to, sometimes I would go live on Facebook, and then I would record it, and later on I would sometimes, YouTube was such an afterthought. It just wasn't even something I was terribly interested in to start out with. So I haven't been like super aggressive on those because I've been streaming to multiple platforms for a while. Restream came along and I'm like, yay, Restream is great. I don't have to go live all the time, all day, talking about the same thing on multiple platforms. But science literacy. So I sent you, Ashley, Alakai. You want to call you Alakai?
Everybody calls me Allie. It's just
Allie. Okay, Allie. So I sent Allie what I initially was looking at was the National Science Foundation statistics associated with literacy. Now, when the first ones I checked out, I believe was 2014 or 20. It was around 2012, 2014, something like that. Every couple of years, they run a study and they ask the general population the same questions to see if they answer them correctly. And then they check according to demographics, gender, and they also look at as far as education, how many degrees do you have? Have you had any science classes and things like that? Initially, we were at 27% of the, well, it was 24% of the US believes in the geocentric model, like the sun goes around the earth. That was a common misconception. That was less than 1 in 4. We're now at 27%. But we're getting better with some aspects about understanding a bit more of what scientists do. But the knowledge in itself, we haven't gotten any better on evolution. We're getting worse on things associated with planetary bodies. One of the questions is, is it true or false you can boil radiation out of milk? A lot of people get that wrong. But
that sounds like such a nonsense question. Like, how do you boil radiation out of anything?
I mean, like, and you think about it, like, you know, people in the modern age still think that the Earth. It's just weird that people still believe these things, and like, you know, young Earth creationism. You would think that in the modern age it would seem to be dissipating, but no, it's still what, like 47-48% of the country thinks that the Earth is 6,000 years old.
Yeah. So if you happen to go, you can go on nsf.gov /statistics/2018.
I actually posted the link to the study in the side chat as soon as you brought it up. I'm pretty up on that stuff.
Yeah, Allie's pretty good about that stuff.
Yay! So do check it out. You can look at the mean number of correct answers to trend factual knowledge of science scale, and they've got it clocked from 1992 to 2016. We had a pretty good surge around 2006, 2008. We were doing better, but we've kind of started to, we haven't really gotten much better. We're almost back to where we were in 1992. So as far as correct number of answers.
That's really scary to think about, like that we're actually regressing. I mean, you see it in society, you see it all over society, I think, right now, but just, yes. I don't know, to think that as a society we're actually getting dumber. I mean, that's a scary thought.
Well, and I mean, there's kind of multiple lines of scientific literacy, right? Like when you think of scientific literacy as a lay person, often you think of like regurgitation of scientific facts, kind of basic understanding. When you think of scientific literacy from the STEM field, you're also talking about your ability to read and comprehend a paper, your ability to understand things like data magic, and the average person nowadays doesn't have those skills. Like if you read a scientific paper, most people will read like the abstract and the conclusion and skip all of the middle stuff.
I'd be really interested in taking that survey myself and see how well I do.
Yeah, and you can pull it up. They post the questions.
I'd like to do that. Maybe make a video about it.
Yeah, they do. They do post the questions, and they go through. Customarily, they find that if you've taken at least 1 or 2 science classes, you do pretty well, particularly in college. So you can check it out. They go through all the demographics, and they also compare us with other countries. So you can kind of check out, how did we do in comparison to other countries in Europe or in China, or, and kind of see where we fall. And then, get quite humbled by reading that.
The myth of American exceptionalism.
Well, and it's still running strong. Like I have to debunk like just politically people's misconceptions about America being the greatest nation in the world, and I'm like, no, we're not like close.
We're not.
So why do you think scientific literacy is on the decline? Like, do you think that it has to do with social policy? Do you think it's like the rise of conspiracy nonsense? Is it an education problem? Like, I know that that's a really broad question, but as a communicator, like, what are some of the trends that you're observing, like, even within the audience that likes to say get into fights with you?
Well, just a little bit of background knowledge. I used to be a high school teacher. So high school, I taught physical science, biology 1 and 2, as well as chemistry.
So then you're the perfect person to ask that question to.
I can tell you. So I have returned to academia, so I do work with adults now in STEM-based stuff. But with high schoolers, getting put into that, I started teaching right away after I got my bachelor's, my first bachelor's degree in biology. They put me right in the classroom, and then I picked up my master's of arts in secondary science education. And then I picked up the second undergrad in biochem. And then I left that, went back to school, got my master's in chemistry. But while I was there, you know, a lot of times, and it's so strange, I would go through and I would look at what the practice tests were for like the end of course exams. Okay. Cause you have measured teachers, and you have teachers that, you know, they're not measured by a state test. Okay. So I was a measured teacher in biology for 4 years. And then I taught high school chemistry and physical science for a year. And then I was like, yay, I'm going to go back to college, you know, get back into academia for a bit. So, but going through and reading those questions, they expect, first of all, the tests expect a student to think critically, but they don't teach that. They don't teach.
You teach kind of a regurgitation type
right.
thing when you're teaching to like a multiple choice test.
Right.
We had a problem with that with the No Child Left Behind in my state. We have an assessment called the WASL, the Washington Assessment of Student Learning, and my generation was actually the first, like my graduating class was the first to be measured from 6th grade all the way to graduation on it. We had to take it every other year, and it resulted kind of in the subjects that you tested on, a lot of teachers felt like they had to teach to the test.
Right. I'm going to change my glasses because that's got a glare on it and it's making me nuts. These are my non-glare glasses. Okay.
Well, and I don't know if that's, you know, if they were measured like performance-wise on that, like from the teacher's perspective. But I do know that like there did seem to be this strong pressure to teach to the test. And a lot of my teachers would do like these little units where once a week we're like, okay, we have to cover the crap the WASL tells me to, so I'm going to do that. And then we're going to go back to the better learning. But I can see how like teachers could feel like they have to only teach to the test to make damn sure you pass it if their pay is getting docked.
Well, I know a lot of it has to do, it has to do with whether or not your school will get money or funding. If you can't show growth. And a lot of times when I would call the state and I would ask, how do you determine a student's growth and if they did well or not? Because you would get error bars back. Now the scientist in me would scream because I would get my data back on my students and the error bars would be like 12% in either direction. And I'm like, this would get thrown out. You're basing whether or not a school gets funding on error bars that are larger than the freaking like graph itself. I'm like, this is your range of error, 12%. Okay. That's not acceptable. But, the multiple choices, they were trying to move away from that and get into Common Core, which is what they did before all of No Child Left Behind happened. But you can't just throw that in to a bunch of high schoolers who have never been taught how to problem solve. Not a single one of them knew how to think critically. They could say, oh, photosynthesis, that's how plants make sugar, you know, and they give us oxygen. Okay, but what does the word actually mean, photosynthesis? It's what plants do. No, photo. What does photo sound like? Photography. Okay. Photo is photons, light. Synthesis. What do you think that word it means? Synthesis. Have you heard that before? Trying to get them to actually understand the words that they were saying. It was like that. I was trying so hard to just get them to understand DNA polymerase. They're like, that's such a big word. I'm scared. I'm like, no. I'm going to break this down for you. DNA, you know what that is, right? Yeah, it's the genetic code. It's inside the nucleus of the cell. And they just start throwing out, but they don't know the connection.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go polymerase. Oh, that's a big, scary word. Yes, it is. Poly means many, more than one. MER, that means unit. ASE means it's an enzyme. So it's an enzyme that makes many units of DNA. Learn all of these prefixes and suffixes and you will never misunderstand a word ever again that you hear, because it's the same.
Which
So-
means you're basically teaching like English in your science class also, because this is some of the stuff that I learned before, like in, during the off years, so to speak, when we weren't getting tested on the WASL, we got to learn a lot more. And I was in some of the more advanced classes. They taught us Greek and Latin roots in my English classes, which you could then apply to your science classes. It was kind of integrated.
But a lot of that just wasn't coming over, and getting them to just reading comprehension was a bit of a thing. The majority of like the ACT and any kind of large passage that they would have to read.
If you're bringing up the ACT, you must be in the Midwest. Because if you're on the coast, it's the SAT.
Right. Well, the ACT, you go through, because I've actually taught and I've given talks about strategies associated with taking the science portion of the ACT. And a lot of it, there's so much reading, but you don't even, you got to read between the lines. You need to know what the data is. And you go through and you're like, okay, I don't need to spend half an hour reading this passage. Let me look at the data first. Let me go back and find the information associated with that. How did they get this data? They don't know how to do that. And so having to go through and get them to understand that it's, you'd say, what's the scientific method? Okay, you observe, then you hypothesize, then you experiment, then you analyze, then you conclude. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? You just said all these words.
Give me an example.
If I, and then I would go through, y'all all do like science at home. What if let's say you get up on Saturday morning and you want a bowl of cereal and you look in your refrigerator and then you notice that your milk, it's a few days off, from the best by date, or the better, drink it before this day, I forget what it's called. The
sell by date.
Sell by date. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. And you see that it's few days off. What's your thought? What's your question? Is it bad? Is it good? What is your tentative answer? Let's say you think it's good. All right. How are you going to test if it's good or not? Well, I can open it up and I could sniff it. That's experiment 1. You write down your notes. Okay. What's another thing you do? Pour a little bit in a cup. Is it chunky? Okay. Write down that.
Can I chew the milk?
Can I chew
I've done all of this.
With the cereal?
Can I chew it? Is it crunchy? Does it smell funny? Does it taste weird? I'm like,
you can also pick it up and examine it if it's a clear bottle and is it separated? Like, is there whey on the top?
These are all the ways. And let's say you thought, yes, it was right. That's your hypothesis. You think that's my tentative answer, that I think it's fine. And then you go through, but what if you have a cold that day, or you're not feeling well and your nose and your mouth and testing all smelling weird? What do? You go to your roommate or your sibling or your family member, and you go, does this smell bad? Peer review right there.
Well, and you might actually do that anyway, even if you're not feeling particularly sick. Like, you might think it's good, but you might still, because the guys will do this when they clean out the fridge. They don't know when produce is off. Like, they'll be like, okay, well, this is kind of wilted a little bit here. Like, does that mean it's bad? And they'll bring it to me and they'll be like, does that look bad to you? I think it looks good. Does it look good? And I'll either say yes or no. And there's your peer review.
Right, exactly. So you do science all the time, but you don't think about it that way. So you've gone through the process of observing your question. What is it good? Your hypothesis. Then you've experimented. Then you look at the data and you're like, okay, Bobby over here sniffed it and he thought it was all right. He didn't see any chunks. I didn't see any chunks either. Okay. I feel pretty strong that I can eat this in my cereal and it's not going to ruin that. And I could put it in my coffee too. It's going to be fine. So, and then you come to your conclusion, but what if it was gross? And then you got to revise your hypothesis. No, this was not the answer. This is the answer. And here's all the reasons why. So in science, there's also this idea that you're not allowed to be wrong. You can be wrong, but you need to say why you're wrong. This is why I was wrong. The data supports this idea, not the one I initially thought. And that's fine. That's like 90% of science is being wrong. And people just, they equate, like, if I get it wrong, I'm going to fail. Not in my class. If you get it wrong and you tell me why you got it wrong or how it is you got it wrong and what the correct answer is, then I know you've learned something.
Mhm. Do you think people are, or the younger people aren't able to think critically because maybe they have access to too much easy information? Maybe just everything's just a click away now, so you can get these really cookie cutter answers to everything, and you don't really have to delve deep. Like when you were talking about photosynthesis, I literally remember in the 6th grade studying for hours to pass that photosynthesis test, like for hours and hours, and delving deep into it, and truly understanding it, because you wanted to understand every part, you wanted to pass that test. But
Right.
now you can just pull it up on your computer or your
Yeah.
cell phone and get the little cookie cutter answer to feed your teacher.
Right. And see, that's where the challenge is as a teacher, is being able to adapt with the new technology. You need to be able to teach your students, okay, it's all right to go and dig in and looking for the answer, but you need to know, is that even the correct answer? You know?
Well, and not only that, but like
Yeah, the
learning
internet,
how-
Yeah.
Well, and learning how you arrive at that answer is as important as
Mhm.
the answer itself, which, if you've got a student who's interested in science, then that's probably a little bit easier to kind of
Mhm.
get them to understand that, because if they're planning on going into a career in it, they're going to be a lot more interested. But for somebody who's, say, like, fascinated by literature, or who wants to be a
Mhm,
politician or something like that, like, it's hard to get people to understand why every single human being on Earth benefits from scientific literacy. If nothing else, but because you understand why, for example, you needed to test to see if your milk had gone bad in the first place, and what going bad means for your health, and how it would make you sick.
One thing that I love to do, because I could do this, you couldn't do this often, but I did in my high school class. And sometimes, teaching in college, I would do this as well. I would bring up stupid things that politicians would say. And then I would pull this up, and I would be like, here you go. What's wrong
So
with
can
this
I get
sentence?
ultra political here for like 2 seconds with an issue that we've talked about frequently on this channel?
It doesn't bother me. It's y'all's
So-
channel.
So, like, if a woman is violated, or the body does not have some magic way of terminating that pregnancy. And ectopic pregnancies, there's no way to implant it. Here's why. Like, legitimately, ectopic pregnancies, there's no way to save that freaking baby. You're just gonna kill the mom. Y'all are dumb.
No, I agree. If you haven't, I've talked at length on my channel with Dr. Leah Torres, who is an OBGYN, and she gets so much hate on the internet. She's like right up there with Jen Gunter, Dr. Gunter. And she's been on my channel a couple of times. It's maddening. Is that a word? Maddeningly?
Maddeningly. Yeah, it would be.
A word? Okay.
You could say it's maddening.
It's maddening. It's absolutely maddening. So I actually brought that particular quote up on. I'm like, they're like, well, when am I ever going to need this in my life? I'm like, let me show you. Clink. And this came out about the time that all of that was going on. So I pulled that article up. I said, read that. What's wrong with that statement? Women can't do that. This is why you need science literacy. Do you know how many people believe that? And then I would
clearly that person that was elected believed it, or he wouldn't have said it.
I mean, it's amazing what people are willing to believe just because somebody that they have put into authority positions say it. I'll always remember them bringing in the snowball into Congress, and just that moment. Yeah, look, it's still snowing outside. Oh my fucking god!
That's not what that is.
Guys, so Shay, I see what you're saying there. And as far as generalist statements, we will talk about fallacies probably on a future stream. In fact, we may or may not invite somebody on to talk about fallacies at some point, because fallacies are a whole different topic.
I get those all the time thrown at me. I'll make a statement and they'll go, but what about? And I'm like, that's like a straw man argument. Or I'll say something. Repeat literally what somebody said. You're straw manning me. No, these are your exact words. It's not a straw man argument to quote your own words to you.
Well, I think it's like it should be understandable that we're speaking in generalizations. Of course, not everybody in America is scientifically illiterate, or we wouldn't have scientist Mel here tonight.
But at least 27% of America can't seem to pass a basic scientific literacy test, and that's a problem.
I don't agree with Bill Maher on much anymore, but that man has it right when he says Americans are stupid. I mean, come on.
We go to a bar when it's safe again. Over 1 in 4 people think the sun revolves around the earth. That was 2018.
I can't get my brain around that.
Over, not 1 in 4, over 1 in 4. It used to be less than 1 in 4. We're now worse.
And I think that it's interesting to talk about the psychological reasons why, because I don't think it's not just the problems with education, because those are a problem, and technology can be a problem. It can also be an incredible force for good, because now there's more access to information than ever, including wrong information, and there's things about combating that. But I also think there's a political and religious impetus that has kind of gotten stronger over the years to hold these more extremist opinions. And there's also this kind of psychological drive to discredit experts. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, because I know you deal with that regularly. You dealt with it last time you were on our channel.
Oh, God, I deal with it all the time, at least on the internet. And as a high school biology teacher, once upon a time ago, I had to teach evolution, and it was fine. And so I learned my first year, that was a gauntlet. Oh, my God, that was the gauntlet. I learned very quickly that there wasn't just a little pushback. There was a lot of pushback, to the point I had a kid wanting to preach in my classroom. And it was a nightmare. But I took that experience and I sorted out, this is what I'm going to have to do. Because I didn't even want to talk about religion. I wanted to pretend it was not in the classroom. And that was the worst possible thing that I could do. So what I did is I adopted this idea. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just address the freaking elephant in the room. And I'm going to lay it out on the table exactly how it is. And I did from the very beginning, from then on, because I was teaching a bunch of farm kids in the Bible Belt evolution. And I'm like, I grew up out here. I know what they're told in the churches. I know what these people are saying. Heavy on the fundamentalist side, don't trust science, et cetera, but the huge ag department, I'm like, who do you think gave you all this stuff for your farms? But hey, whatever.
They even demonize you. Like I was gonna come to that. Iron Charioteer does have a question for you. We'll get to that in a second, but I wanted to come to this part because I do a lot of work against people like MMA Jenkins, people like what's the other one's name? Kirby is a Boss. Just really young people doing young outreach with a very fundamental evangelical message. And a lot of these people, when they even refer to science, they don't just say science or evolution. They say secular science. It's like they have to put that secular in the beginning there just to demonize it to the people that they're trying to suck into their religion.
And so I had to go up against a lot of stuff like that. And so moving forward with my class, I changed to a different school. And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Smaller class size, way more manageable. I had a lab. It was really nice. And I thought, okay, I can handle this. And so I walked in, I'm like, hey, look, we're going to talk about things that are controversial, really controversial. And evolution isn't. It's not controversial. There's no huge, but you use those terms because that's what they're told that they are. And I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about things that you're probably not going to agree with, but that's okay. You're going to be 18 soon. You're going to be an adult. And so let's talk about this. We're going to talk about evolution. We're going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about, and I just laid it all out on the table. And I said, and you know what? I am never, ever, I promise you this, I will never, ever tell you what to think. I want to teach you how to think. You have fantastic brains, wonderful minds. I want you to come up with your own conclusions, and I'm fine with that. And so I completely removed any and all aggression. And I sat there and I'm like, and you may ask, why won't I talk about creationism? I said, okay, all of my degrees are in science. Would you bring your car to me to have me fix it? And we're like, I said, well, I'll have a great time taking it apart. Don't know how to put it back together, but I will
Yeah.
take that whole thing apart and have a blast doing it. You know? Yeah.
I
it's
mean, I'm covering, the Genesis right now, chapter by chapter, and it's just like it's ridiculous. And for them to think that their science teacher is going to teach that shit in science class, I mean,
some
like,
do.
what world do you live on? Honestly.
Some do. There's some states that it's completely legal
Yeah.
to teach
Oh, yeah.
that along with evolution as equal in a science classroom. And so I
Well,
brought that
and-
up to them. And the thing worked. They looked at me and they're like, well, that makes sense. I said, why would you want me to talk about creationism? I'm not a pastor. I don't have a degree in religion. I do want you to go to your pastor and have them discuss creationism with you, because they have degrees in that. And they would be the most qualified, not me. I'm a science person. And then they were like, well, that makes sense. And then it was just like, and she's not going to tell me I have to believe in evolution. I said, I just want to teach you what the words mean, and you can do with it whatever you want.
That's a really good answer to that question. I mean, this came up in my conversations with Matt Powell, probably several of the Christians I've debated on Modern Day Debate. And that's a really good question when they talk about evolution in classrooms. Yeah, I mean, like, if you're going to learn science, you go to a science class. But if you want to learn theology, you go to your preacher. That's an excellent answer.
I mean,
Well, and
there
it
was no
actually
other-
brings up a really good point, though. And again, we're gonna make this political, but it's impossible not to, especially because you brought up politics. So
And-
I now
and
have open.
That'll
like,
tie
I now
into
have open-
Iron
right.
Charioteer's question as well, because he's asking about something about Corona.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I wasn't bringing up Corona, actually. I was going to bring up Fox News.
I know, but the chat's asking.
So I guess go ahead and ask Iron Charioteer's question, and then I'll bring up Fox News, because this is a good segue anyway. Also, your daughter's making shadow puppets.
Yeah, she is super happy. She made something in my bedroom and wants me to see it, and I kind of don't want to. But Iron asks, ask Mel, what will happen if you inhale the fumes of isopropyl alcohol for COVID relief?
I wouldn't do that. I know there was I actually
Burn the
got
fuck out of your lungs. I can tell you that much,
Yeah.
because I use isopropyl to clean certain equipment in my house, and you have to have the windows open when you do that. Otherwise, you're going to get dizzy.
Yes. It can lead to poisoning. It can make you feel drunk because it is an alcohol. It can cause nausea.
Doesn't it have some nasty metabolic side effects, though? Like ethanol has some too, but like
Yes.
isopropyl has particularly nasty
Yeah.
side effects.
I'm just, I'm doing a quick search because I can't remember the MSDS right away, but you can look up poison.org. Rubbing alcohol can be toxic when inhaled. So poison.org, there's articles. I'm trying to find a little bit. I know there was some associated with irritation of your mucosal membranes. It's extremely irritating to the digestive tract. It can cause dehydration, low blood pressure, shock, coma. I thought it caused blindness at one time, but that's like, no, but it's not the same as ethanol. Isopropyl alcohol has a different molecular structure than ethanol. And shape matters when it comes to chemistry. Different shapes of different molecules cause different reactions to happen in the body. This is kind of the basis of how we have like antibodies that interact with viruses. Those proteins have to be specific shapes in order to latch on to those little signalers or these little receptors on the outside of that virus. And that
according to the report that I'm reading, inhaled heated isopropyl alcohol can react with your lungs and can damage not just the mucosal layer, but if there's enough of it, it can damage the actual cellular structure of your lungs, your bronchial tubes.
Oh, okay. So all the tissue damage.
Just the question alone, though, is, I mean, it's sad. It's like, it speaks to that 27% you were talking about earlier. Like these people, they'll go to just like the dumbest extremes possible. It seems. And then if you call them dumb for doing so, like you're an asshole. Like, no, don't go drink bleach. Don't
do that.
Don't inject disinfectants. Whatever the hell you think might help you. Just go to the CDC. Listen to the scientists. Use your common sense and just fucking be practical. It's
well,
really
you know,
weird.
when the companies themselves are putting out statements right after Trump talks
Right.
and are like, don't inject yourself with our shit, like, you know, he's done something wrong.
Like, you shouldn't have to tell people that. Like they should be able to fit. Like,
Okay,
there's literally
don't plug
27% of the people of this country didn't learn when they touched the stove. They kept touching it. You know?
All right,
need
knock,
Mr.
knock.
Yuck.
Don't use your hairdryer in the bathtub.
Oh
Just
my
saying.
God.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if you guys know this dude. I've been blocked by so many woo pushers on Twitter.
Whoops.
There's
Sorry.
it's like so many woo pushers have blocked me. It's like I need to just frame it and put it on my wall. It's amazing.
You could always do the Stephen King thing, just like print their tweets out or the block notifications and like get this really long like deck screw or like or I think they were frame nails, nail it into your wall and just like print out a piece of paper for every single one of them and just like stick them all on the nail. Like he did with his rejection letters.
PETA, David Avocado Wolf, John Edwards.
PETA can go fuck themselves.
Mercola. So Mercola was the one I was going to talk about, the fake doctor. He was telling people to nebulize hydrogen peroxide, basically heat up hydrogen peroxide and inhale it. He was telling
How
people.
stupid are you? Jesus fuck!
It's an extremely strong oxidizer. So basically, you would
is
suffer
he
burns.
is he the doctor on Facebook that everybody told me to watch? And I'm like, because you're telling me to watch him, I'm not going to watch him. Like the viral.
The doctor that went viral. That guy was, first off, he was a psychiatrist, not the doctor.
Yeah. I never watched this shit because I'm like, if all these crazy people are telling me to watch this doctor, I don't want to watch this doctor.
His secondary business was that he was a naturopath, not a medical doctor. So that should tell you where his so-called expertise comes from. He's an example of scientists talking out in their depth, and we'll bring that up later.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. It just struck me. I'm like, is this the damn doctor I see all over Facebook?
I sent out a call for people to report his tweet for promoting self-harm, and he had actually got a hit a few times by Twitter saying, and Twitter removed the tweets. And I'm like, he's done it again, guys. Please go report this tweet. And then he blocked me. Like, it's not my fault you go to Twitter jail for posting stuff encouraging people to burn their lungs, but whatever.
Yeah, well, I'm doing videos on Three Hearts Church, and they're one of these conspiracy Christian groups pushing COVID shit right now. I've covered them for a while, and but I'm not even covering her conspiracy theories. I'm just covering her whine about YouTube and Facebook taking her conspiracy theories down. And I'm like, if maybe if your information was accurate, they wouldn't be taking your shit down.
I always
you just gave me an opening to talk about like Rant Dude, which I've been waiting for this whole stream. Okay. But go ahead, Scientist Mel. I'll let you talk first, and then I'll talk about Rant Dude.
I was just gonna say, if people have a genuine problem and they're like, "Well, Twitter keeps censoring me and YouTube keeps censoring me," then buy your own website, post your own videos on there, and foot that cost.
Yeah,
pretty much.
You play by the rules that you're given, and if you go too far over and over again, like she's complaining, like, oh, I can't find truthers on YouTube anymore, and I'm like, I'm all for free speech. This is a private company, and I'm all for you not being able to find truthers.
It's I wrote an article once on my website about free speech clarifications and that sort of thing. How people are like, well, they're removing me of my free speech rights. I'm like, no, Twitter's like a big cafe, and you're upsetting all of the other customers, and the owners have asked you to leave.
I'm like, do they even have civics class anymore? Because free speech is a government issue. It's not a private company.
The answer is no, Knock. There was not a civic class when I was growing up. The only reason I learned civics is because I took an AP class, which means I took the equivalent of a college course in high school.
I'm so old. I remember civics class.
So, all right, rant guy. So a couple weeks ago, and I ranted about this on Twitter a little bit. I ranted at Knock in Knock's general direction for days and annoyed the fuck out of him. I also ranted at Scientist Mel when I first invited her on, and maybe annoyed her. I don't know, but I was mad. But I know for a fact I annoyed Knock because he told me so. But
No, I
there
just
was
said that I was editing videos, and damn it, I'll talk about this when I'm done. Or something along those lines. I can't remember.
But so I went in. My PCP, my primary care provider, is in a clinic that is on the campus of a hospital. Just because I have a lot of specialists that I have to see because of my numerous conditions. I've got 2 autoimmune conditions. Right. I've got polycystic ovarian syndrome. I've got ADHD. Wow. I've got all kinds of shit that needs to be like regularly and consistently managed. Right. So it just works best for me to go to a clinic that is on the hospital campus because all of they're all in network and all of my specialists are in the same area. So I just have to go to a different building instead of an entirely different area to go see a specialist. So there was this interesting situation where my cat was in the hospital and she was in the animal hospital. My partner had to go pick her up. And the timing was really bad because my appointment didn't take as long as we thought it was going to. So I had to wait for a good 45 minutes for him to pick me up. And while I was sitting out in the parking lot, because I didn't want to sit in the hospital waiting room there was this couple that was in wheelchairs and looked like one of them might have been on a breathing apparatus of some kind. And I've had the virus before, and we still don't know how long we're contagious for. So even though I was wearing a mask, I was like, I don't want to do anything that might even resemble putting these guys at risk. I went and sat out of the parking lot. This fucker was wandering around the parking lot. He going up to people and yelling at us to take our masks and saying that we don't need to wear them. And so he goes up to me and he starts telling me that. And I'm like, well, my husband and I both ended up in the hospital with COVID for.
We lost you, Ellie.
Now I'm fully invested in this story.
I think she broke her
microphone. Am I back, guys?
Okay, you're back. I was like, then what happened? She's gone. She got in the hospital with COVID.
Yeah. So I told him I've been in the hospital with COVID, and so is my husband for 2 different things. I ended up there because we thought I had blood clots. My husband ended up there because we couldn't get his fever down. It was above 103 for over a week, and it got up to the highest was 104.8. So we had to get him in. He passed out on the way to the bathroom. I told this story when he ended up in the hospital. So I told this guy about this stuff, and he starts ranting about how he's actually a public health expert. And his theory is that it's actually polio because nothing like COVID actually exists. And, most people are not actually at risk, so it's not worth shutting down the entire economy. This dude he didn't have a badge. He didn't have anything. He started fucking yelling at me about that. And so he started interrogating me about my health history, trying to find any reason why I would have gotten that sick and why there would have been a scare for clots and all this other stuff. My response after that was I live tweeted about it, as it was going on. And then I went and got hospital staff and let them know about him. And then the security went and chased him. But the point being is that people like that, there's this crazy amount of Dunning-Kruger where people think they can do a couple of internet searches and that somehow makes them a public health expert. If he was a public health expert, he would not be arguing the things he was arguing.
And he wouldn't be going through the parking lot yelling at people either. That's not normal behavior of public health experts.
Yeah, this seems to happen a lot in your area. People are always you're always talking to me about how people are rude and shit. And I'm like, here in Michigan, everybody's gangbangers or businessmen. It's one or the other, but we're decent to each other. We don't just go around talking shit.
Well, so the fat shaming that happens at the grocery store, it's because of the culture in that particular area. With this actually shocked me because I've never experienced anything like this before.
Yeah, I get angry. I actually went to inside a Kroger. I called.
Can you post Iron Charioteer's comment because that's brilliant?
Which one?
YouTube University student. It takes a lifetime to graduate.
It really does. Oh my God.
Oh, there's so many of them.
Oh gosh, I went to Kroger because I've actually been ill. I'm going on my 3rd week. I don't know what's wrong, but I don't have a fever or anything. And I called my doctor, just go to one of those little clinics and they'll just take care of you real fast. And I'm like, okay. And so I go and they give me antibiotics and everything. But I have my mask on. I put my gloves on when I walk in. And I'm like, okay. And also, guys, if you don't know how to wear gloves, don't wear them. Don't keep the same gloves on the entire time. You're just spreading germs everywhere.
And also, if your mask is not over your nose, you're not doing it right.
Right. So I walk into the Kroger. There's a guy standing that's a greeter standing at the door with the mask under his nose. And I'm like, could you please put that over your nose? And he goes, I'm being forced to wear this. This isn't my choice. And I'm like, then why even wear it if you're not going to wear it properly? And then I turned around and I stormed off. I was so mad. I almost got full Karen in there. I didn't. I did not ask for a manager. I was very polite. I waited for the people to show up at the clinic and I asked them, I'm like, because a lot of the employees had the masks under their nose or completely off under their chin. I'm like, why are you? And there were elderly people.
I almost went full Karen for the same reason. Like I went to there's this Asian grocer. It's a Korean grocer. It's called Awajimaya. It's like a West Coast thing. If anybody lives out here, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. They're giant. You can get all kinds of like specialty Chinese ingredients and Japanese ingredients there. But I went and got a like one of the bubble tea smoothies from their little stand, and the guy who handed it to us had like his mask down below his chin. And I'm sitting here going, like, you're literally handling my food, dude. Like, what the actual fuck?
I can't eat anywhere. I can't do it because I know everything that can kill me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it all goes back to what we were talking about earlier with science literacy and just people being too willing to just ignore credible evidence or even just to not care about it. Like I can't tell. Like when I was going to work yesterday, it was like the first time I'm looking around and the roads are as busy as they were before. People are walking. People aren't wearing masks. I mean, it's just like people have decided that they're done being safe. And I don't know if it's, the president or if it's all the misinformation or, one side is saying this, one side is saying that. And we're so polarized now. But it's like, I got to work and I told my boss, I'm like, it's like people don't give a fuck, like they're done with it now. It doesn't really matter what anybody says. They're done with it now. And we're just going to have to face the consequences of it.
I'm so frustrated. Yeah. I ended up talking to somebody in that little clinic and I asked them, I'm like, do they not know how to wear a mask? And they're like, we tell them all the time and they don't listen. They don't listen to us. And there's elderly people that are retirees that are working at this Kroger. And I started to worry about them. They had their masks on properly. I'm like, but it doesn't do them any good if the young people don't have their masks. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to call corporate. So I'm just going to go straight way above. And I was very polite. I was very nice. And I said, I'm just really worried about your elderly and immunocompromised workers. And they don't deserve to die for their job. And so I put it that way. I'm like, you know what? I wore a mask, not for me, but to protect all your workers there. And I feel like it's important that if your people are going to stay in the same building all day, where you have the same air circulating, where we know COVID-19 can hang in the air if there's if it's in water droplets.
Yeah. Really inside buildings is where you're prone to pick it up.
Right. And so I'm sitting here going, my God. And so they were very nice. Kroger was very nice. And so they said, we'll talk to the district manager because, I mean, if the little clinic and the doctors there are saying we tell them and they don't listen. And I mentioned that they are not listening and they're doing this as a form of protest because they feel like they're being forced to wear masks. And I'm like, well, then find another job.
Well, yeah, I mean, this whole argument, like our liberties are being taken away. Like, no, like, is your liberties being taken away when they tell you to go inside because a tornado is coming? It's the same shit. Like, it's literally, when this is over and they're still like trying to imply a police state, come and talk to me about your liberties. Right now, they're trying to save your fucking life. Like.
It makes me so mad. I actually had a full-on rant. I did a rant, What's Eating Scientists Mel for Hannibal and Monty. They just showed the first half of my rant. They're going to show the rest in a video later, where that's what I went off about. If you think that wearing a mask and being told to stay home and all of this is infringing on your rights, use that argument next time you're in drunk driver's court.
Hey guys, we've got we've got somebody imaginary. There's a Paige Shill in the chat. Welcome from Australia, Ivan Van Veen. And I'm sorry to hear about that, about the nurse being irresponsible. The crazy thing about this virus, though, is that you cannot have symptoms at all and still
Yeah.
get it. Like when I caught it from my husband, he hadn't developed symptoms yet. Like according to the timeline the CDC and the DOH put
Right.
together for me. And two people in my house, one of which was high risk, never developed symptoms at all either, despite having frequent contact with us, both when we were asymptomatic, and one of them was stubborn and decided to be in contact with us while we were symptomatic. So, like, it's kind of crazy because, like, the one we were worried about, he's got type 1 diabetes and
Wow.
is dealing with liver failure, and he never caught it. Like, he never caught
Yeah,
it.
well, I think that's the weirdest thing about this disease, and I don't think even most people quite understand. Like, I was thinking about this the other day. Like it's changed now. It's like people think that we're gonna when Trump says we're gonna open up the economy, no, we're gonna open up to maybe 33%. You're gonna have to get a reservation to go inside of a restaurant. I mean, it's not gonna be the same as before.
They're not doing that. They're filling up everywhere.
Really?
Yeah. So there was some forget which bar it was in Wisconsin.
See, that's the business I work in, and here in Michigan, like we're talking about that, like opening up. We're going to put tents outside. We're going to really try to keep people separated. The governor, I mean, we're here and we're only opening to 33% capacity, and we've got to be ready for that when we open, and we've got to have all of these. So, I mean, Michigan, but Michigan's governor is taking the most heat from Trump because she is actually listening to the scientists and saying we're going to do this right.
Oh my
Well,
God.
and I'm going to cut in really quick to do my typical midstream shill. There's 25 of you guys sitting around there in the chat. We only got 12 likes. Give us a little bit of a boost in the algorithm, considering us doing activism made YouTube decide that our channel isn't profitable anymore. So any little bit that you guys can do, a like, a comment, literally anything will help us with getting these messages out. But also, I think this is a really good time to kind of transition into one of the points that I was talking about earlier, because you made the point earlier about representation of creationism and evolution within classrooms as though they are the same, on the same level. And I want to argue that outlets like Fox News, with their so-called fair and balanced coverage, or even other news outlets, have been pressured because of them to do this, of representing things like, say, climate change, with a climate change denier being put on the same level as an actual climate scientist within one of those fields, and it being treated like it's a controversy in the scientific community when it's not. I think that things like that might be very heavily contributing to this issue, like the infotainment sort of attitude toward news, and the idea that you need to represent, quote, both sides equally, even though one side has scientific consensus and the other has angry shouting conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, we need to change our media, but I'll let you respond.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's cool. One thing that's interesting, and Dan Rather, I follow him everywhere. He's amazing. He was on the front lines at the very beginning when they started to lobby and ask Congress for a set time, like the evening news, like 6 o'clock news. They wanted a specific slot. And so they had to lobby Congress and meet in front of Congress and have sessions and stuff like that because they wanted access to the airwaves. And part of that agreement was that they presented nonpartisan type, non-biased type of news reporting. Now with Fox News, they don't claim to be news. They actually claim to be entertainment. And since they're on cable and not airwaves, they're not technically regulated so much. So they have a workaround for that. They're not required to show unbiased news reporting. It's all opinions. And they say it's entertainment, but it's presented as some form of news, but their category is entertainment. And so in many ways, they're just lying about what they are. And a lot of people watch that because what do? They invoke feelings associated with a particular group of individuals, those individuals that aren't skeptical, that don't question, the ones that are they want their feelings. And it feels good to hear somebody tell you, you guys are right. You guys are right. You're always right. You're always right. Current example. I just put an app on my phone yesterday and it makes me feel amazing. I finally caved into a Facebook ad and it's a bunch of fish and you put them in an aquarium and all they do is tell me how wonderful I am. Like all the time. I'll play a game. They're like, you're so smart, Mel. You busted through all that concrete. I'm like, I did. They're like, and you did you know what? I'm really happy here. I'm so glad you put me in this aquarium. I'm like, this is amazing. No wonder people use this stuff. This is brilliant. People will spend their money to make these fish super happy just to tell them how great they are. That's Fox News.
Yeah.
Well, and I would argue that the explosion of documentary infotainment on places like Netflix and less scrupulous, I don't know if anybody here has ever heard of Gaia, but Gaia is like Netflix for crazy people.
Huh.
It's like Goop, but worse. Gaia is basically this streaming service that is nothing but pseudoscience. Like, it'll give you all of the latest info on how emotional oils can cure everything.
Yeah, I think I
like,
have seen commercials for that shit. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, like I did some preliminary investigating of it just to kind of look at it because, like I said, when I talked to you, Knock, part of the Pissed Off Polytheist is going to be a bit of science debunking and stuff, and I'm hoping to do collaborative videos on some of those things. So I started digging into Gaia a little bit because I've noticed that a lot of our favorite little pseudoscience YouTubers like to cite them and advertise and shill for them. And good gods, I'm not sure what I was expecting, but what I found was worse. It is absolutely filled to the brim with stick a jade egg in your vagina and this combination of like essential oils will not only cure COVID, but if you stick it up your ass, you might prevent rectal cancer and just like that kind of crazy stuff. And I wish I was joking, but there was actually a documentary about that.
You know, I should find their fan base and tell them I can email them an invisible mask full of thoughts and prayers that's just as effective for $50. Send me $50. I will email you a mask that's made of thoughts and prayers.
Well, yeah, and I've always hated the thoughts and prayers bullshit. It's I'm an anti-gun advocate. I get in a lot of trouble with some of my friends, and it's like I've heard thoughts and prayers for 10 years now that I've been doing that advocacy. But speaking of like Fox News, the thing with them is like when you have segments of society that you deem to be extreme or just too out there, and then you push them to the fringe, and if you're not constantly exposing those bad ideologies and you're just leaving them to kind of fester and linger, well then you'll have a Fox News come along that kind of vindicates everything that they've been grumbling and whispering about for 20, 30, 40 years. And yeah, Fox doesn't have to be accurate because they know they have that demographic that's just willing to listen to them feed those fears. And I think, I've often said that you don't have a Donald Trump as president of the United States ever if you didn't have Fox News playing to that demographic. And now those people that were on the far fringes, those neo-Nazis, white supremacists, those types, now their immigration policy is standard Republican policy. And it's mainly because Fox News has went so far to the right over the decades.
I think you're ignoring a little bit the influence of places like The Hill and Breitbart, because Breitbart brought a lot of people.
That's a whole new element. Like that's a whole new element. When you're talking Fox News, you're going back 30 years maybe. So with Breitbart and with a lot of these news sources, that's a new element of media. That media that we're taking advantage of right now. That they're just doing it a lot better. And yeah, you're talking, when you're talking Breitbart, you're talking direct anti-Semitic. Steve Bannon will deny it till he's blue in the face, but everybody knows he hates Jews.
Yeah, God, they just And I
don't even think they're as bad as like Rush Limbaugh and Hannity. Like if you listen to their radio shows, it is a travesty of truth. It's a travesty of truth. There's no other way to describe their radio shows. And I listen to them. Like I spend an hour every day. If I'm in the car, I'm listening to that. My daughter hates it. You know, Dad, let me watch my videos. No, we're gonna listen to this shit.
Oh God, I can't do it. There are some things I
It's
can't
horrible.
do. There's certain YouTube individuals I can't watch. It's just at some point I just want to pull out my hair. And I'm like, yeah, I could do something else right now. I could, I don't know, play my stupid fish game that makes me feel better.
Yeah. I've been playing a lot of my games to make me feel better lately. I'm playing Final Fantasy X again just because it reminds me of being young and dumb. And
So much Blitzball. Like I played more Blitzball
it takes me
on that
back to
game
my
than I
younger
actually
days.
played
I'm
the
like,
game.
I'm loving it. It's fucking great.
Dodging the
I'm
fucking
not
lightning
playing.
bolts to get the best weapons, man. Oh my god, 100 of those in a row. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I almost finished BioShock Infinite. I got all the way to the end and I rage quit because I got so sick of the freaking bird and then all the Patriots, and you have to like zip line in the back, shoot the Patriots in the back. Great game though. Really like the game. But I'm a rage quitter. I get really mad. And then you can beat this on an easier level was so passive aggressive. I felt like that was so passive aggressive. I am not playing this on easy. F you. And I was
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm not gonna degrade myself.
This is the last battle. You could put this on easy if you're having a hard time. Like, just no.
But I mean, on the subject of gaming, though, and scientific literacy, there's actually some excellent games out there that can teach you some really cool stuff. Like, there's a game that I've been playing a lot of lately called Hacker Evolution that effectively
cool.
teaches you programming, kind of, because you have to actually hack the game in order to beat it. There's another one that I have that's called, I want to say that it's called Genome. It came out in the latest Humble Bundle, but it teaches you Mendelian genetics and
that's
Mendelian
cool.
evolution. Like you can, unfortunately, you can pick mutations, which is a problem. But
Yeah.
like it has like genetic pairing, and it actually has like dominant and recessive pairs, and it has like
Does it have
genetic.
an assortment?
Yeah, it does. And it also has pairs that work together as well, like for eye color and for stuff like that.
That's
It's
neat.
really, really fascinating, and it's actually extremely complex. And it has you like it's got the effects of inbreeding and like genetic diseases and all kinds of things.
Just
in
like
it.
bottleneck effect. Just
Yep,
have that in
bottleneck
there.
effect. Your characters, you have to bring your herd traveling around and pick up new members because otherwise you'll start getting like the mutations that you can
Debilitating
pick will starting to
mutations.
become more and more debilitating and less beneficial.
Okay. I mean,
I've never heard of it, Ali.
Yeah. I've only got
You
the
wouldn't
Snapchat
like it.
pulled up.
You wouldn't like it because you're a graphics whore. It is very much an educational game, but it's very, very fun.
See, I fear like I would play a game like that and I'd be like, and I would find everything that's wrong with it. And it just, it's
Okay,
it's
the
science.
point being is that if you're a kid, it's
Yeah.
at least fairly educational. There's
Right.
there's other games that are based on chemistry where like they're
Uh-huh.
puzzles and stuff that are based off of chemical reactions where
Well,
you
that's
can
cool.
like actually you have to figure out what catalyst and like what chemical like
okay.
reagents and such to mix together in order to solve the puzzle and get whatever output you want to get or whatever arrangement of molecules you want to get.
Well, that's
Yeah, well,
cool.
they've actually incorporated like gaming into my daughter's education in her elementary school. I mean, she
That's
plays games almost every day.
That's awesome.
So I
And
think
so
that
that's cool.
gaming and I think gaming and the internet can be part of the solution too if we have intelligently designed games where, they're like the problem with a lot of entertainment games is that they're not fun. So you have to find a way
Right.
to make the education a
Well-
part of the experience rather than the whole experience.
Well, I think we're gonna have to win this war on information. I mean, people kind of pussyfoot around the issue. We have a war on what's truth and what's not truth.
Right.
The Russian government was able to take advantage of it in 2016, and we got a fucking inept moron leading the country during a pandemic. We have got to fight misinformation. And we've got to establish importance in the truth in society, and I think that is something that we have to do with our children, and that's why, like, people tell me, why do you pick on MMA? She's just this little innocent girl. No, she's dangerous, man. She's bringing in youth to misinformation,
Right.
and we've got to win this war. I mean, this is a war here, and we're all fucking living in it now. We're living with the results of misinformation now.
It's frustrating for me because at times I kind of regret that I'm not still a high school teacher because I feel like I did get through quite a bit to people, but I'm at, I'm doing a lot more really good work in my academia job, and it's very rewarding. But for example, I gave a talk about nuclear chemistry a few weeks ago, and I was talking about the origin, through the Big Bang and everything that was going on with that. And there was a woman who had asked me a question, and had asked me a question. About the Big Bang. She's like, so it's real. And she was probably well into her 30s. And she's like, I'm just fascinated that the Big Bang is real. And I said, yes. And this is what happened. And so I talked about hydrogen, and how it's like a positive hydrogen ion is just literally a proton. There's no neutrons there. There's no electrons. It's literally just a proton floating around. And often we call hydrogen ions protons. And so that's the simplest form of an element. And then as the universe expanded, it got cooler, and then the other subatomic particles started to come together over a very long period of time. That's how the elements formed. And that's essentially what the Big Bang was. And then she had that moment where she's like, wow, that makes so much sense. And I was
okay,
like,
but Mel, how can an explosion out of chaos produce order?
Well, then one of my favorite things that I like to talk about, then we're talking about attractions between subatomic particles. There's a natural, you have your protons and your neutrons, then they come together.
I'm sorry, by the way, I had to troll Matt Powell first off, and second, go ahead with your explanation.
Well, it's just, it's funny because I get questions and I have answers for that. And they're always surprised that I have answers. I'm like, no, this is what the science talks about. This is what the evidence suggests, and it's non-confrontational. Unlike Naka, blast them, I don't debate creationists. I just don't do it.
I'm trying to stay away from it now. I think I learned my lesson.
Modern day debate has messaged me, would you like to be opposite standing for truth? I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Thank you, though, for asking.
I want to debate Matt Powell, but it's a personal thing because he's scared of me.
Well, I don't want to debate creationism. I don't mind debating young Earth creationists. Or evolution. Like, I'm not a scientist. That shit, I'll leave that to the people that can talk. I want to debate them about the Bible. That's what I know. I think the Bible's ridiculous.
No, nuts. At the time that I was teaching high school, the Bill Nye and Ken Ham debate was on. And most, if not all of my students at the time, they're like, oh my God, we're going to watch. Because there was some huge Ken Ham fans. And one of them, gosh, I will never forget.
Dude, Hovind and Ham direct an entire generation of kids, let me tell you.
I know.
How do people even listen to that man and get interested in what he's have to say?
They're invested emotionally.
Okay, they play that stuff, I will tell you, because they did this for me. They play that shit in church camps. They play it in youth groups. They play it as young as 8 or 9 years fucking old in some churches, mine included. That was part of our education.
Yeah, it's indoctrination, and it's you make everything normal. I've spoken about that, but it's just like I listen to Ken Ham, right? Like I can listen to Hovind and I can see it. Like he's got this like maybe appeal to stupid people.
He still takes my calls. I don't understand.
He still wants to debate me, and I'm like, dude, I'll debate you on your hateful ideologies, not on evolution. And he doesn't want anything to do with it. But like with Ken Ham, it's just like a grating noise in my ear. I don't understand how people can listen to that man. Like it's just like I just want to like vomit.
It's there, it having been brought up in the same type of environment. The students that were all in, they were huge Ham fans. One of them, extremely intelligent girl, straight A student. And this is something that a lot of people don't think about. And this, I've had this conversation with Dr. Amanda Glaze. She's Evo PhD on Twitter. She's been on my channel a couple of times. She's going to give a talk with a different organization I'm affiliated with, Taste of Science. They're nationwide, by the way. It's pretty cool. It's a nonprofit organization. And I'm one of the producers that help do a lot of their different shows. So with Amanda Glaze, Dr. Amanda Glaze, her research is in evolution education. She's a Christian. She fully is heavy Christian, but she also is an evolution researcher. And her main focus is trying to increase evolution education among those who are religious to show it's not combative. But something that he and I both agree on, and I remember, again, anecdotal, but also personal experience, having a student who is so smart, one of the smartest students I've ever taught, full Ken Ham person, totally bought in. When we went over the evidence for evolution, you could see it tearing her apart because she knew it made sense. And it wasn't just a, oh, okay, I'm just going to throw this out. She was smart. She could do the math. She could look at the evidence. She was fully fascinated. She wanted to do science. And you're sitting there and you can see it physically in her that it was ripping her apart. There's not a lot of care associated when you're talking to people like this. This is a part of their identity.
Mhm.
And so when you're introducing the evidence in such a small, simple, simplistic manner, and it just comes together perfectly and it makes complete sense, and they know it makes sense, they now have to go, I've been lied to.
Well, and this is part of the reason why religious fundamentalism and extremism is so incredibly harmful, right? Like, we did our stream on self-indoctrination and how people that are, can, if you guys missed that, by the way, it was an interview with Nacho Witness where we talked about Jehovah's Witnesses in particular and their self-indoctrination, but we also talked about kind of religious fundamentalism overall. And when you tie your identity to a flawed idea so strongly the way that fundies do, when you shut down critical thinking the way that fundies do, what you end up with is basically a mental health crisis, because when the truth comes out, and ultimately it's going to, because there is an education system that is separate. This is the reason these assholes want to homeschool their kids. This is the reason that they're trying to force this stuff into textbooks. The moment you start to come out with the truth, you are now left with not only a crisis of identity, but also a crisis of often nihilism, because this is the only idea they've ever been presented with. And so now what does the world mean if I don't have this God to serve, or if this God didn't do everything that they told me to? How do I even know if they're real?
Well, and Mel's story speaks to it's not about intelligence. It is about that indoctrination. You can be smart as fuck and still have these really, really wrong ideas about the world, and it's very easy to just be taught something your whole life and never really look at it critically, even though you're equipped to do so. That's really fascinating.
It's extremely painful for these people because, particularly in the South, the church is the community. That's everybody knows you. They came to your birthday party. They watched you grow up. And I grew up in a town where we had one pizza place. There were no movie theaters. We had a couple churches that had gyms and swimming pools. You could go hang out there. That's where your friends went. And there's a church about a mile apart from each other for the next 15 miles here. And it was a part of, this is where I go. If you were hungry, you could eat at the church. You could always rely on stuff. So it was a communal type of thing. And so that's part of, okay, this is part of the people that, are important to me. And even though they're very, and they may not mean poor, they may not have bad intentions. They're just this gross distrust and mistrust of science. And then when you get somebody like this little girl who's sitting there, who now has me, either I'm the liar and I've completely removed and said, it's okay if you don't believe this. I just want to make certain you understand it. Why would she fight me? I'm not going to fight her because it's okay for her to believe what she wants. I just want her to understand the words. So I'm not screaming, how dare you believe in Jesus? I'm not the one yelling at her, hot hellfire and brimstone. I'm going, this is just what it is. And that's okay if you don't accept it. I'm not going to hurt you. And so, so here,
I
does she
think the
call me
people
a
that are
liar?
worth fighting are not the general believers. They're not the indoctrinated kids or the general believer on the street. I think the only people that are worth fighting are the people at the heads of, people like Ken
Right.
Ham and
Right.
Kent Hovind, and the people that are pushing these ideologies and actively profiting off
Right.
of it. I think that those are the people worth debating and fighting. But if you've got your your angry uncle or your little cousin who's been indoctrinated in a church, teaching is a much more useful tact than mocking, I think.
Right. And so when that debate came out, she asked me, would you like to come to my church and watch it with us? I said, oh, do you want me to talk and explain what evolution is? Because I would love to do that. Oh, no, I don't think we'll want you to talk. And at the time I was working on another degree, I said, you know what? That's okay. I really probably need to get some work done at my house for my homework, for et cetera, et cetera. And I was just going to watch it on the internet. But thank you so much. The next day came and we're sitting there and they're like, oh, that was a big thing. Did you watch the debate? I said, yeah, I watched it. I've got the gist of it. I thought Bill Nye did not do a good job, but I didn't say that. I was just like, he was not. I needed Neil deGrasse Tyson there and about 99 other scientists if we're going to have a level playing field, if I'm honest. So
Well,
it's
and
like,
here's another thing though that brings up a really good point. Bill Nye's an engineer, basically, isn't he? Like,
yeah, but there's a lot of science in what you had. He's probably, honestly, looking at the requirements for an engineering degree where he went to school. There's a huge amount of physics. There's lots of math. There's chemistry. There's a lot of science there.
well, I'm not arguing that there's no science there, but what I'm talking about is there's a tendency, I think, in the media in general to see the word science or doctor and assume that they know everything about everything. Case in point being the psychiatrist who thinks that COVID is fake, or trying to get Bill Nye to come on to talk about, if we were to bring Bill Nye to talk on about COVID, he could probably read a couple papers and do a decent job, but why wouldn't you get an epidemiologist?
Right. I mean, that would be ideal. But Bill is really good at communicating hard science. And so you could get an epidemiologist on here, but what if they're not personable? What if they don't answer questions in layman's terms? Like I use Legos to talk about bonding and the importance of how shape of molecule determines boiling point and how well it can stick to itself. And then I pull out different shapes of Legos. Which one of these is going to have a higher boiling point, do you think, or require more energy to pull apart, and why? I mean, you can take hard science and offer it in tangible pieces. And Bill's really great at that. There are a lot of epidemiologists who cannot talk to the general public in any kind of capacity. With that said, this is where I say Doc Savage is amazing at that. Just so you know.
we need to have Doc Savage on very, very soon. Like we
Yeah.
wanted to invite him for a while. We're starting to book the channel out for the future because Nock is finally understanding the value of a calendar.
Yeah,
So
I'm
we're
trying to
hoping be able
get
to
better.
him on.
I absolutely adore Doc Savage. He and I did a show for a little while, and then his schedule started to get really, really busy.
Was
And
Doc Savage the one that was here for Sygart wanted to come in?
No, he did want to come in for Sygart. He wanted to talk to him.
we got to do that. We got to get
God.
me, you, Sygart, and Doc Savage.
So
Yeah.
it looks like we might have to do a part 2 to the stream because we were going to be talking about research skills also, and I advertised that for the stream. But we've been talking so much about literacy and
We
communication.
can talk about research skills. That's all right. Can do that too.
I mean, any excuse to invite you on again sometime, right? Like,
Actually, it's funny. I know Sygart and Doc Savage.
well, I don't know Doc
Yeah.
Savage that well, but I actually got on so well with my conversation with Sygart that he offered to send me a signed copy of his book for me to review on the channel.
Oh, that's nice.
Because I invited him on and I was like, okay, I know that we had our debate and I know it was really nasty because I went after him about slavery because we were talking about Christian morality, but I want to geek out with you over evolutionary biology and just like science. Like, let's just talk
Yeah.
science for an hour and a half. And it was a brilliant conversation.
Next time might not be so pleasant because he said we can talk theocracy next time. So I'm like, that might be a bit different kind of conversation.
Oh man, I want to be a fly on the wall for that with Doc Savage. Doc is really good with talking to theologians, and particularly if you start bringing evolution into it. Sometimes sometimes he doesn't pull punches, but usually not with like another science person. He's very respectful in the appropriate environment. But if you were to put opposite G-Man or something like that. Oh my God, he won't. He and I both agreed we will not talk to G-Man. We just won't do it because it'll feel like
G-Man tried to get me to gang up on Knock
Yeah.
with him, and I'm like, do you know what a polytheist is, dude? I don't give a shit that Knock's an atheist. I'm his co-host, dude.
Yeah, like he came on my channel and tried to get my co-host to somehow prove to me that atheism is bad and I need to become a Christian. Like Matt Powell tried that, dude. Like Matt Powell's dad tried to convert me back to Christianity. It's not going to happen, G-Man. It's just not.
But he was trying to get me, like, he's like, oh, you're a theist also. You can show him how atheism is stupid. And I'm like, I think that atheism is a perfectly rational position. Like, I've said that.
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not even like the raging atheist like I used to be. Like I don't even. I've calmed down a lot over the last year and a half, and it's mainly due to my interactions with Matt Powell. Just like you live and you learn, and you get better as you go along. And I still have to deal with this dude. Like he text messaged me 2 days ago and told me he was going to take down, or he said he probably would take down a video because he didn't realize it was an inaccurate depiction, and he didn't realize that me and Aaron Ra were cool. And I'm like, dude, like the comment was pinned at the top of the video you butchered. Like, how do you not see that? Like, you were so stupid. He's just, I'm still dealing with it. It's just, it never stops with that guy.
Fair enough. I just, G-Man said I was worse than a Nazi and says I need plastic surgery and I need to go in the kitchen and make him a sandwich.
What a piece of shit.
I'm like, him and true empiricism. Somebody in the side chat mentioned I should debate a misogynist. I've done that. His name is Tommy Hall. Go check that out on the Geek Room. I had an entire bottle of wine before I even started, and I completely.
You kind of have to. Like, people ask me, like, because I was hung over my first conversation with Matt Powell. And I'm like, it's my first face to face with a hate preacher ever, and it's Matt Powell. You bet your ass I went out and got crunk the night before.
And see, Tommy Hall, if you're not familiar with him, I call him the lawnmower man, but he's less intelligent.
The name sounds really familiar. I might have actually seen your debate because I've seen a couple of your things, so I might have seen it. I don't know.
Yeah, this was on the Geek Room about over 2 years ago, and Frank from the Geek Room to this day.
Is this one the Nephilim free debate? Trump baby blimp helicopter rescue Trump the Moon and Mars, or is that a different one?
No, this was Tommy Hall wanted to debate. About
the name sounds familiar.
And I've done cancer research. And so I went and looked at a few of his videos and I took notes and I wrote down notes. I'm like, okay. And so my whole, I wasn't going to go into debate. I wanted to go in and say, okay, let me find out what he actually knows. So I had all kinds of questions laid out. So I was fully prepared.
Okay. So is this the TGR discussion with Scientist Mel and Tommy Hall cancer?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to post that in the live chat for folks who want to go check that out after the video.
Check that out. Yeah, so I had an entire bottle of wine going into it, but I was fully prepared. And then I drank a second bottle in the middle of it. And after a while, we just all kind of glazed over because he has a script and they just run this script. And he actually on his channel had something mansplaining to Scientist Mel. He has some hate videos on it. It's hilarious.
I hate anybody that uses the term mansplaining. I just
and you hate
naturally
me
hate them.
because I get mansplained too regularly. It's fucking annoying.
I'm talking like dudes that use it. Like dudes that use it are generally like the worst fucking dudes you'll ever meet.
Oh my gosh, it was hilarious. So I went through in the papers that he sent me. I'm like, okay, do you know what this word means? He goes, well, no. I said, do you know what flow cytometry is? And it's like that. If you read this abstract right here, this sentence, I'm like, but that's not what this paper says. And so it's just, he misrepresented his papers and then brought up a thing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I had gotten something mixed up in the actual video. And then I immediately messaged Frank. I'm like, hey, Frank, here's this information. I got this wrong. Will you pin this?
I thought you were saying he was saying that he was trying to mansplain to you. I hate dudes that fucking say that shit.
Like, I'm mansplaining to Scientists. And he was really mad. I found out later that he doesn't believe married women have to consent to sex. And
he's one of those. Oh my God.
that grossed me out. I'm like, I don't ever want to talk to this guy again. Then
Like
you got-
anytime, and I say this a lot. Like anytime that you can put yourself on a pedestal with Steven Anderson, you should want to jump off. Like seriously, I mean,
it's crazy.
So
And
this sounds like a motherfucker whose ass I need to whoop.
he's disgusting. He's gross. I think I don't know. He's just and so after I found that, I'm like, yeah, I don't ever want to talk to him again. When I find out people's certain perspectives, I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna separate myself from you because oh my God. If so I'm very careful about which channels I appear on.
I've become the same way. Like I will give people a chance. I had no idea who Misha Popoff was.
Yeah, I was about to say Misha Popoff taught you that lesson hard.
Well, I mean, originally Matt Powell did. Like, when I went to talk to Matt Powell, he had just really, I mean, Friendly Atheist had just released his blog about him. Essence of Thought had just put a video out on him, but not too many people knew about him when he started trolling me and we set up our first conversation. So I was just walking into it blind. I had no idea what he was about.
Yeah.
But it's that level of just sliminess with a character that eventually you're just like, I'm not going to do this. At least I'm not going to do this face to face with you anymore. I'm not going to give you that breathing room. Misha Popoff is like, he's like a character, like just recently, I've told him several times now, I'm not going to have nothing to do with you. I'll laugh at you from afar. And he's messaging James on Modern Day Debate talking about how either me or Skylar need to debate him on this. I'm like, dude, how many times do I got to tell you? I will not debate you. I have no interest in debating that monster. Misha, I will not debate you.
Well, I mean, he's a fucking neo-Nazi on top of it. Like, it was not hard to dig into it, like, to dig into his stuff. He writes for a neo-Nazi newspaper, like, openly. Like, that article that we reviewed from the Liberty Sentinel actually originally came from a neo-Nazi newspaper run by E. Michael Jones.
Yeah, so it's like, I'm totally with you there. Like, I will give people a chance, but like, once I see your true character, then it's just time to really separate and go and talk. Like, I want to talk to like serious, legitimate Christians. That's why I opened that dialogue with that Christian blogger, and I'm, we just had SJ on. I don't know how serious she is. I don't know. I don't like her much. But it's a lot better than the Matt Powells of the world.
Oh God, I wouldn't say that. I completely disagree.
Well, yeah, so does Allie. Like, I don't know where I stand with her. Like, there's this issue going on with Jim, and I got to talk to Jim and see, because I don't want to be on SJ's side of much of anything. So.
SJ scares me in a lot of ways because she tries to present herself as being reasonable while spouting some of the most like egregious stuff. Like, I put her right there with Girl Defined, and she's basically what would happen if the transformed wife was better at PR.
Like with her, like I think she's a genuinely like just your normal Karen. Honestly, I hate to say that. She's probably watching. Sorry, SJ. I know you messaged me on Twitter. I'll look at it. But like
I'm being an open.
I want to be nicer, and I want to have like, if I can have a legitimate conversation to where it's an actual positive exchange, I want to do that when I can, because like I just get sick of dealing with the Matt Powells and the Mishas and all these reprehensible people that just really don't even really shine a light on what Christianity is and what I really want to fight about it.
I would tread lightly. There are people that have screenshots of where she's trolled a widow.
Oh yeah, that's one of the things Ali brought up that I had completely did not know anything about.
She actually helped my stalker harass me on Twitter by perpetuating his narrative. She basically said I was a sex worker.
So I mean, these might be some things if she does come back on, which I don't think she is, because I think she's seen my videos on her since she did come back on.
She looks.
But I do like, these are the questions that I really want to ask her if we do have a conversation. I don't like. I hopefully she doesn't think that a conversation with me would be easy for her by any means, because I'm going to ask some really hard questions, and because I've heard a lot of things now since I've had her on. She was on my radar before. I had fun with her, just kind of making edited videos. But now, like, I had her on and I'm hearing a lot of stories. I think that I'd like to have a conversation about some of the things that I've been hearing.
Well, I mean, it might walk into legal grounds if you bring up stuff with me. Just
All right. Yeah.
Because she
Well, the
was
big question that I want answered is about about her trolling the widow about
Yeah.
the death of
Yeah,
one of
I
our
vaguely
community
remember
members.
that happening,
Yeah.
but I would like to know more about that
I
too.
can send you people to talk to about that who have all the evidence associated with that. But yeah, my stalker contacted her and used her to harass me, which is something that he does with people who have large Twitter followings, which is why I just don't have response videos. I don't fight people on Twitter. I just mute, block, or whatever, move on.
Yeah, I
Because
don't
this
get on
has
Twitter
happened
much.
twice. This has happened twice with her and with I Am Atheist Girl, and he always has the same narrative. And I've never been an actual cam girl. I've never, if I was, I'm terrible at it because I've never been paid. So it's like, so it's
Well,
just
and like you shouldn't even have to say that. Like, whose fucking business is it
I know.
anyway?
But he was perpetuating this and sharing this rumor with other people. And just sharing this information, like, and this guy I've actually had to file a police report on. I have a lawyer on it. FBI cybercrimes was involved, and she was given this information and she's like, yeah, I don't care. She reveled in hurting me. And she was like, she deserved it because I asked her what her sources were, that nihilism causes depression. That's what that was. That warranted her trying to discredit me and helping my stalker harass me. So,
Yeah, that's jacked up. I just had I just always kind of saw her as kind of silly, and like she's this educated woman that seems to be wrong and seems to side with some really reprehensible people. Like
he thinks G-Man's great.
Yeah, G-Man's on her channel all the time now, and so it's like an enigma to me. She is, but like I just always kind of seen her as somebody that says really stupid shit that's supposed to be really smart. But then Allie started telling me about the widow, and I'm like, whoa, that's not the nice lady that she portrays herself to be.
She was celebrating the tragic death of a community member, basically by telling his widow that he was going to go to hell.
Yeah, and that he was burning in
things.
hell the day after that he passed, and I'm like,
and this was somebody. This is somebody that like majorly rocked the community. I think his daughter is actually.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. Like I should remember his name because I actually watched. What was it? Bill Ludlow?
No, not Bill.
No, not. I can't remember the name.
I want to say he got.
I watched some of his videos like way back in the day. I remember watching them a long time ago.
He was a science communicator.
Oh, okay.
I think it was like Science is Awesome. I think is who it was.
Okay.
But,
chat, help us out. I know you know chat.
I'm pretty sure Tony knows.
Tony probably does, yeah.
But yeah, I remember the story, and I remember seeing the screenshots and stuff because I remember I was invited to a debate with SJ, and I had a bunch of friends who were like, hey, by the way, if you're thinking about doing this, you should probably know this about this person. And I was like, nope, not going to be in a call with her.
Yeah, that's kind of like what happened with Misha when, Dragnot sent us that information and, like an hour before we were going to stream. And I'm like, fuck, there goes the nice conversation I was going to have.
Psystrike. It was Psystrike.
Oh, I don't know.
It
wasn't Psystrike. No, it wasn't Psystrike.
Was it Psystrike? I thought it was.
No. It wasn't Psystrike. It was somebody else.
It was like a long time. It was like a year ago.
Yeah, it wasn't Psystrike.
It was like right around the time I came into the community. This happened like a couple months afterwards.
I'd like to ask her about that.
Yeah, I'll put you in contact with the people who have that.
But like I said, I don't like. She messaged me on Twitter about the whole gym thing. But when it comes to like coming back on the channel, it was supposed to be her and Godless Girl. Godless Girl hasn't answered back. I think Godless Girl realizes that might not be a pleasant conversation. Yeah, I haven't gotten an answer back, and I do know that she has seen my videos on her now, and so I don't think that she'll actually want to come back because I don't think she has to know like I'm gonna be a dick probably.
Yeah, I think she brags a lot about how many views her tweets get, and she posts, look at this tweet that I said about this person, it's really blowing up, and then she'll post a screen of the stats. And I'm like, who cares?
I've never taken Twitter seriously. I probably should. I should try to utilize it more to grow the channel, but I'm like, it's every time I get on Twitter, it pisses me off and I get off of it. So.
Yeah, I mute a lot. I mute more often than I block. If somebody gets really creepy and weird, then I just block and move on. But mute. I just mute and mute and mute.
So welcome back to the channel. Long time no see, Stupid Horror Energy. We got demonetized for quote unquote hate speech after taking down a bunch of Misha Popoff's anti-LGBT propaganda stuff. So there is
But
no
I
more
really
super
don't think
chat.
it was Misha. I think it was just a prolonged NIFB campaign. The
I
big
said it was right
question-
after. The timing
yeah.
is still accurate, regardless. I
Yeah.
didn't say it was because of Misha.
I know,
said it was
but
right
you know
after.
Misha, he'll be
He
riding
can get
that.
the fuck over himself. I'm talking about the timing. He
Naka's
can get-
blaming me fucking bullshit storm for the next year again. So.
He's already doing that. He won't leave you the fuck
know.
alone no matter what we do. I might as well at least.
Yeah, Allie she was literally just a few days ago was like, "Hey, Misha's been quiet lately," and I'm like, "Haha, you haven't looked at the comments." And then as soon as she said it, boom, email after email from Misha Popoff.
Wow.
Oh, fucker. It was sending us a bunch of like really screwed up like videos with no like context. Like he does not stop.
It's,
He's
he's my
Misa, stop
stalker
being a
right now.
knockoff.
Yeah, he's my stalker right now. But not in the nothing like you've. I'm just dealing with a stupid fucker.
Dude, I just mute and people are like, you shouldn't delete comments. I'm like, if they have nothing to do with the video, yeah, I'm gonna delete them. I don't care.
I don't even have to anymore. Like YouTube deletes good comments, bad comments. It's like YouTube has this madness with deleting comments now. It's insane.
I just don't care. I kind of, the way I see it, my channel is like my classroom and I cultivate the culture there. So I'm not going to let people be horrible to each other because I can, and if you're not going to stick to the topic, don't need your comment, delete, I don't, it doesn't matter to me.
We kind of let the stupid happen in our comments section unless it's really, really bad. Like when somebody started using the
I'm
nickname
opening up the
Callan's-
stupid again. It's my fault because I just
Well, when somebody
I like
used
to
the
troll
U-
him back.
Well, when somebody used the YouTube nickname like Callan's Raging Boner and was trying to misgender one of our friends, we'll delete that shit.
Oh,
but
my
we
God.
generally don't audit our comment section, though sometimes it appears that our comment section gets so bad at times that YouTube audits it
Oh,
for
yeah.
us regardless of our will. This has happened multiple times now, so we're not really sure what exactly we can do in that regard.
Yeah, like YouTube is being like Nazis with their deleting. Like they're deleting like good comments. Nothing wrong with them. I get them in my notifications. I go to like click on it to put that heart on that great comment, and it's not there. And I'm like, YouTube, like what is going on?
So Stupid Horror Energy, we are setting up a Streamlabs. We're also going to be getting a PayPal.me for Knock. It's slow progress because Knock is technologically illiterate and keeps getting obsessed with other things and other
I get
upgrades.
obsessed. I like to learn stuff,
He's
and
a magpie.
But-
Ooh, shiny.
But
And
we
it goes-
have been making improvements to the Patreon, and Patreon has enabled one-time donations and such. So
Oh,
if you're
that's
interested
cool.
in doing that,
I
Patreon
do
is
need
the
to-
option for supporting the channel currently. We are still working on the t-shirts. Obviously, COVID kind of delayed that a bit. We're working on the design. We're hoping to get those out by the end of the year. Like everybody that was a patron in January who resubscribed by the end of the crisis, because we're not going to penalize anybody who unsubscribed because they couldn't fucking pay for it. Like, we're in the same financial position that y'all are. Like, we get it if you can't help support the channel. Like, we're not going to penalize you for something that
I
we
think
promised you in January.
most people have come back now. In fact, like Patreon's actually growing again. Patreon still needs some work. I ain't gonna lie. Because like right now it's like it's 19 people. It's like I would just put everything for everybody. That's my fault. Structures come into everything.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
have a hard
structure's
time with
important.
some of that too, so I completely get it. So-
I'm like, it's like 19 people, so like most of them are the low tier, and I want them to like if I just transform my office. Why share that with 4 people when you can share it with 20 people? That's how I look at it.
Like, all right. So, Agnostic Pagan Mother, as far as the tech gremlins go, we need a Patreon link really quick. Apparently, Stupid Horror Energy wants to be on the Patreon. For as far as the tech gremlins go,
I
have
do need to
tech
fix the
gremlins.
side chat
Knock,
shit.
on the other hand, has a rogue caps lock.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
troll him perpetually on the Discord because of his caps lock.
It's because you know, like the fucking thumbnails, man. You gotta have capital letters with the thumbnails. So I'm like always making thumbnails. So and then you're talking to me, and then I talk back, and it's all caps.
I'm really excited today.
Oh, she's like, stop shouting. I'm like, what are you talking? Oh shit, you know.
And then if he does it enough, he officially like earns it, and I end up trolling the fuck out of him, and he gets like some variation on, you know, caps lock trolling on the Discord, and his name gets changed.
Like
Because-
if I'm not at work or if I'm not doing schoolwork with my daughter, like I'm doing this shit, man, like all the time. Like it's why I'm getting like fat. I need to start working out because I'm always sitting down just doing nothing.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I need to. You know, I've turned part of my kitchen into a gym, but I've been sick for 3 weeks.
I know I've heard about like these treadmills that they have for like office stations so you can record while you're working out, and I'm like seriously thinking about getting one of those fuckers.
You know, it's like I didn't ever use my dining table, and so I just took, and I have an eat-in kitchen. So I converted the area where my table was. I have a treadmill there. I got some free weights. And I'm just like, it's all set. But I've been sick. And I'm like, 3 weeks of being sick. I'm just like, man, it's right there. And I got my TV and my Roku. I'm like, ah.
I know I am determined. I'm going to start working out again. I haven't in like 8 years. I've just let myself go since I was like 34 years old. So I'm going to make it part of my routine, and I'm OCD, so I've got to make it a part of my routine. And I'm going to put it on Patreon and show everybody my fat ass working out.
Oh, what my Wonder Woman? That's not a figurine. That's actually what is this? Is a Tonner doll. This is a Tonner doll. It's probably worth about $200 on eBay right now.
Wonder Woman used to be my daughter's favorite, but then Fat Thor came.
Oh, Fat Thor. I love Fat Thor.
Yeah,
I love Fat
Thor's the favorite now. Yeah.
God, he was amazing. And it's just like you could tell he was really in a low depression. He couldn't save the people that he loved, you know. And it's
Yeah,
like,
I thought he did really good at it. I thought he did a great job.
and they're like, you are still valuable. It doesn't matter. And I was like, and people were like, oh, they're fat shaming Thor. I'm like, no. They're like, they didn't care what size he was. They knew he had value regardless of his size. Amazing.
He just had to find it in himself. It was really awesome. Yeah.
His value to his body. They were tying the value to what he had in his heart. And you're like,
I mean, it really made it a good movie for me because the whole time travel thing was like, could have probably done something better than that. But the Thor storyline was it made the whole movie, and then Tony Stark dying at the end, of course.
oh God, I have not watched that film again. I can't do it. I'm not ready.
Yeah, my daughter won't watch it again. I watched it because I'm a dork over and over again.
It's like that and Logan. I tried to watch Logan a second time and I couldn't do it. I'm like,
I'm praying to the comic book gods that Hugh Jackman gets his senses back, and does at least one Wolverine movie with Deadpool.
oh, that'd be great. But man, Logan, I didn't know that storyline because I hadn't read that, and I was familiar with all the other X-Men stuff, but didn't know about the Logan storyline where it was the old man Logan. And we're like, yeah, we'll go see it. And I'm sitting there, and then it's just when Professor X died, I'm like, I can't do this. And this is like ripped my heart out. And then Logan dies. I'm like, I'm not okay. Like, why would you bring me to this film? I can't sit through a freaking Disney film. Why would you bring me to this film?
Yeah, it was brutal too. Like it was like the first time that I thought, because there's been several times throughout the course of Hugh Jackman playing that character where like he became Logan or he became Wolverine. But it was like the first time through that whole movie that he was like the character. I mean, it was brutal. Like the claws through the arms at the beginning, cutting people's arms off, just mutilating people. That was the Wolverine I grew up reading about. Like
Right.
you knew he was a good guy, but it was hard to see it a lot of times. You know.
Yeah.
All right, so we are way off in the freaking weeds, by the way, guys.
Yeah. I've done got us on comic books somehow. So
So, by the way, now that you've got the I'm in fucking trouble smug Smile on. I want to remind you that Maynard has been in the chat for quite a while, and we have still not given him smoke weed every day.
Yeah, the smoke, like that's what I do when my camera goes off. So I've been smoking, Maynard.
So we're getting to the last like 10 or so minutes of the broadcast. Is there any sort of takeaway that you want to give for the audience, either regarding scientific literacy or how to discuss things with very clearly scientifically illiterate people? Like, what do you want the takeaway for the stream to be? Because I think we're going to have to talk about research skills on the next stream, because we ended up talking about movies.
Yes, I'm sorry. I am interested in a lot of things. So
why would you be sorry? Geeking out on our channel and going off into the weeds, if it doesn't happen at least once, you're not on a rage stream. Just saying.
Fair enough. Okay, as far as science literacy, I really want people to try to just find that curiosity again. And I think the fact that we associate being wrong with weakness is one of the biggest issues associated with scientific literacy. It's okay to be wrong. We're not going to.
Well, and looking to science for certainty is a silly idea anyway.
Right. Look to science for certain experts. I mean, I wouldn't go to an expert in frickin' like psychiatry and ask about cancer, unless I wanted to learn how to cope with the grief associated with it. You know what I mean? But, it's important. And I've talked a bit about what do you do in the past on my channel about if you're trying to get information on a particular thing. Sometimes science journals are really hard to read, but look to more of the science magazines. Those are okay. Really, we really just need to kind of spark that passionate curiosity again that we used to have.
And I would argue if you read an opinion piece, a really good thing to do would be, number one, to see if they cite their sources, and number two, go actually read their sources and see if they're good sources.
Right, exactly. Also, knowing the difference between a good source and a bad source, that's really hard. And so one of the things that I do is talk about how to spot bad science. So I do have a few videos on my channel for that. How do you spot bad science? Because there is bad science.
One of the first things that you can do is check to see what journal it was published in.
Right. What journal is it in? The sample size, that sort of thing. So the main takeaway that I'd like to have from this, y'all get curious again. Be wrong. Be gloriously wrong. Not just really wrong. Be super wrong enough to where you're like, you know what is the actual answer to this? And then go find it. Check your resources, check your sources. Are they good? Are they good, solid experts? Is it a good website? Is it reputable? But be wrong and be okay with being wrong, and be curious again. Be curious. I mean, one of the things I love, I got to have a great talk with Cosmobiologist on Twitter. He was on my channel. His whole job is looking for life outside of Earth. And he has such amazing stuff. And he's just like, let me tell you about this thing that's awesome. I'm like, okay, what is it? Did you know it's raining diamonds on this, moon? And I'm like, oh my God, it's raining diamonds. I mean, just, we need to find
Isn't that one of the moons of Jupiter that it rains diamonds?
I think it's Titan.
That is so freaking cool. I mean, and like finding out that Jupiter's like eye storm stopped or reversed a couple of years ago, that was really crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. But be curious about stuff and be excited about where is that love that we used to have, like, and ask really stupid questions. Why does the moon follow the car while we're driving at night? Why? Be a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old again and ask great questions.
And there's things out there, like, and you don't know it until you look for it. I got into a physics debate I wasn't ready for, but somehow I messaged on Facebook. I don't know how I did that. I got into a physics debate. I wasn't quite ready for it. I should have took way more time to prepare for it. But I learned about like things that string theory and multiverse theory, all these fascinating ideas that can really stretch your imagination if you just take the time to learn about them and know that they're out there and they're being considered.
Right. And for me to be able to work with people that thought Big Bang was just a theory, and then I explained to them what it was. Oh, it's real? Yes, isn't that cool? Yes, it is. And so when you're talking about science, get really, really, excited about it and just
So we have one of our native trolls. Stupid Horror Energy is a long supporter of the channel. She also loves to troll the fuck out of all of our guests. Your baptism in troll questions is why will we have a COVID vaccine and will it bring normalcy?
Yeah, I was waiting for a moment to do her question for the COVID vaccine.
I can talk about that.
And I love Super Horror Energy. Like she trolls well. She will make you mad if she turns her sights on you.
Like I said, welcome to the channel. She's back, and that means that you were getting baptized in troll fire.
She super chatted, so shout out to her. She super chatted on my channel before.
She has some good comments too. I mean, it's not always just trolling. She will fuck you up with some good questions.
Yeah, it's really good.
She and I had an interesting discussion. It wasn't on my Greek religion stream. It was just on a stream in general where I ended up bringing up my faith, and we had a really interesting. It was the Ask a Pagan stream, I think, and we ended up having a really interesting exchange about Pazuzu, and she was impressed that I had seen Hereditary and knew the references she was making.
Oh, that's cool. Fair enough. Well, to answer your question, it usually takes about 12 to 18 months just to develop a vaccine. There are currently several different trials that are going on. So they have to monitor people for any side effects. They have to check to see if there's any response when they inject a person with the vaccine while they're testing, they have to see if there is actually an immune response. Is it strong enough with one injection? Do you need 2 shots? Do you need 3 shots?
And do you develop the antibodies you need to kill the actual virus?
So is it like with HPV, for instance, the Gardasil vaccine requires 3 injections in order to elicit a strong enough immune response. And they're finding with that particular vaccine, now this comes from Doc Savage because he worked in vaccines. So I get a lot of my information from him and the World Health Organization.
Oh, he works in vaccines, so we definitely need to get him on.
He's and he'll never like sit here and ever admit he does work in that, and he is let me just say he's a leading expert. So but he's amazing. So a lot of my information comes from him. So when it takes about 12 to 18 months, so they have to see how much of an immune response that you get. Is there enough antibodies to show that reinfection, that the virus is neutralized? They need to make certain that there's no side effects. Trying to rush a vaccine. I mean, Dr. Fauci, he said the soonest at best would be December if everything is, and they've seen that there is a response for certain vaccines in some macaque monkeys to where they tested in animals to see if they can elicit an immune response that's effective enough. And so, yes, those were fine. So they moved to humans, but it takes about a year. And then you have to consider just making millions and billions of vaccines. A lot of them are made in eggs. So you have to grow the things. And then
besides that, like a lot of the vaccines that are being tested right now are like partial protein vaccines rather than actual broken down viruses, because we don't have a huge sample size for the viruses.
Right.
Yeah. So we're looking at maybe a minimum of a year, maybe upwards of 2.
Yes. Possibly a year. Best case scenario, December or January. And we have to also monitor the virus itself. It's an RNA virus. It seems that it has some proofreading, which minimizes mutations, which is good, but not completely.
And obviously it was volatile enough to mutate enough to be able to attack us, which means that it's volatile enough it could change within the next couple of years.
And that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Most of the time, mutations in an RNA virus, they cause harm to the virus itself and they die out. That's the thing that happens. That's most of the time. But if you have a large enough population to where the more people are infected with it, it's like pulling a slot machine handle. If you only pull it a couple of times, most of the time nothing happens. And when it does happen, it's bad for the virus. But every once in a while, You pull that handle, you're going to hit a jackpot. And it's going to be something that strengthens the virus. We've already seen there's a confirmed amount of 19 different strains now. They think it's as many as 30. One strain has a viral load that's 270 times more than one of the bad versions, which means it's making copies of itself 270 times faster in a person. And so there's very, very severe symptoms with the strain that has, 270 times as many virus bodies, because that's what it does. It infects your cells, lots of cells all over your body, and then primarily the lungs, but it can affect the GI tract, it can affect the kidneys, it can affect your nervous system, and a little bit in your brain. It's causing blood clots.
It's also, it's attacking white blood cells also and causing like basically a cytokine storm, which is a very, very scary thing.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of inflammation in these particular areas where the virus. So people who have a strong immune response to pathogens, they're the ones where the cytokine storm is what we're seeing, where there's an influx of white blood cells that are trying to battle the virus. And what they're seeing is when they're using the ventilators, and that's filling up those alveoli, all of those white blood cells. So when they use the ventilators to try to force that out, it's actually causing damage as well. So do you breathe or not?
They've actually found that basically one of the mechanisms by which it operates, if I was reading it correctly, is that the virus itself can attach to these white blood cells and cause them to release mass amounts of that hormone in people who don't otherwise have a very strong immune response.
I haven't read that.
That was one of the bits of literature that I was reading when my husband and I caught it, because I got pneumonia within 3 days of catching it. And so I was reading up on it, and one of the papers that I read showed that the virus could actually attack white blood cells and cause them to release mass amounts of basically flagging hormones, for lack of a better way to put it, to draw more white blood cells and cause that sort of cytokine storm.
Okay. Well, I mean, your initial immune response would do that. It releases all of those cellular signals, and it's like, hey, we've got an intruder here. And then that causes, so... I don't know.
So what I was reading was that the virus itself seemed to do something that caused them to release more of those than they otherwise would in some people.
It might be a signaler thing. They might be able to interact with receptors on those.
It seems like there's a lot about this one that we're finding out as we're going along.
Right. But if they were to and people are like, well, people are getting reinfected. Not necessarily. They're doing largely the PCR test. And so what that means is they do swabs up in your nose and your throat and everything. What they're looking for is genetic traces of the virus. Now, if your body has started to kick in on an immune response and lowered the amount of virus bodies, your viral load, and it lowers it enough, you may do all those swabs and then go and check and run your PCR, which is making copies of the genetic code. And if they're like, hey, there's no viral DNA there, COVID-19 negative, there can be a high rate of a false negative because it's only available within a window. So if you were infected and you've had the virus, and then you start to show symptoms, and then once your body's immune system kicks in and starts fighting it off, it's going to lower the number of virus bodies floating around in your system. Therefore, it might reach it to an undetectable level. And so you could test negative for that, and then, have a resurgence and still have it and be there. And you go, oh, I caught it again. Probably not. It's probably the same infection, and you just tested negative, but you're positive now.
Okay, so I found the paper, and basically what it stated, I misspoke. It says that they don't necessarily attack the T cells directly, but that something about the virus itself appears to, even in ordinary patients, cause a more massive release of cytokines than an average cold or flu type virus would.
Right.
They're still investigating what specifically the mechanism is, but they said that most, even patients that don't end up on ventilators, they're finding that T cells are more depleted in COVID patients than they are for typical cold or flu. So It appears that the virus itself has something that causes the immune system to overreact more than other colds do.
Right.
All right, we got one more question from Iron, and then we are going to close it down. We're running a little late, but just going back to the vaccine thing, I'm not an anti-vaxxer at all. I have two issues right now, and one is if Trump pushes a vaccine through, I would be really worried. Like if we have a vaccine by the end of summer, I'm not sure if I would trust this administration with that. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a little too hard on Trump with that. But the second point is Gilead. I've seen Handmaid's Tale. The name freaks me out. Did we lose everybody?
It looks like Mel is frozen on my end. Can you still hear me?
Oh yeah, it looks like we lost Mel. So maybe she'll come back in for the very end.
Yeah,
Hopefully she heard. I was
problem.
being kind of funny, but at the same time serious. So hopefully she'll come in and kind of address that, and we'll let Iron ask that last question. There she is.
Sorry, no, it happened.
Yes, I'm not sure if you heard me. I was saying that if they were to come out with like a vaccine by the end of summer, I wouldn't be able to trust. I don't think I would trust the Trump administration. Their vaccine, I would need Fauci at least, and sometimes Fauci is like, is he selling his soul to appease this man? The other thing was, I don't know if you heard, I've seen the Handmaid's Tale. Anything labeled and named Gilead, I have issues with. So
Yes. I cannot wait for the next season. I'm so worried
Yeah.
about everybody.
I was
It's-
telling Ali like season 3 kind of sucks, and then I got to the end of it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I want season 4 now.
So, by the way, Tony Designs expanded out on my comment. The hypothesis for the cause of the cytokine storm is that it impairs the way the body handles oxidants in 2 different ways.
Okay. Yeah, he said he'll send it to me on my Discord. I need to be more active on my Discord. I've just been up to my eyeballs in work. It's like, did you work from home? I'm
I
like,
haven't
"What,
been very
12
active on mine either.
hours?"
So we have one more question from Iron Cherries
Sure.
here. Mel, why can't they use horse or other large animals to produce antibodies like they do with snake venoms? It's all proteins anyway.
They probably can, but they need to be able to induce that type of antibody response. I used to, in industry, I used to work in basically genetically modified yeast and causing it to generate antigens that we would use, that people could use for testing. Now, they can induce antibodies and that sort of thing. Most of the stuff that we did, we had like goats and mouse and sheep and all kinds of stuff to where you can genetically make these animals to produce this type of protein. That's possible. You would have to, of course, purify it, and it'd have to meet certain standards in order for it to be injected into people. That's where you get into like very clean rooms, and that sort of thing. Of course, it's highly regulated. Testing is one thing. It's in a different world to where it doesn't have to. You can have kind of dirty proteins and it still be okay that don't interact with the testing, but you have to be able to cause that immune response in those particular animals, and for those antibodies to actually be transferable to people, and that there's no inherent immune response to that from people. So it requires a bit more research to make certain that they are exactly matching, that there's no immune response in people to that particular thing. And you also have to make certain you can induce that type of antibody response with that particular virus. So that requires a lot of genetics there. We just don't have that yet. But yeah, I mean, that's possible. Certainly possible. One thing that they're looking at for vaccines is possibly getting the viral RNA that makes the proteins on the outside, and having the cells just make those particular proteins. So on the outside of COVID, you've seen a picture of it.
Like, if I remember right, specifically, they're testing. My partner has Kaiser Permanente, and they said that they were testing a vaccine that was like basically just those bits.
Right. So they were trying to see if maybe they could just inject the protein bits to see if that would elicit an immune response to where it doesn't have the entire virus that would cause you to be sick. And there's another way that they can do that, is to where they have your own cells make those protein bits, and then your immune system would be like, hey, what are these proteins? And then they would make the antibodies that would attach to them. And so those are two different possibilities as well for a vaccine.
Aaron's trying to keep us going. I actually read an article. I don't know how accurate it is. I think I picked it up on Facebook, so take that for a grain of salt. But where I was reading that they are using llamas for one of the antibodies that they're testing. I don't know how accurate it was again.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't read anything like that yet. I know that they've been able to produce antibodies in macaque monkeys, which would be a bit more closer to us genetically. So that would probably, but that was through the initial vaccine trials. So they're probably going to move forward with what's actually been tested and effective right now, just for the sake of time. But if everybody were to get vaccinated, that would solve a lot of these problems. But we know a lot of people won't. So,
Stupid Horror Energy. If I ever have a fans only page, it'll be me in my underwear eating popcorn and probably picking my nose. You wouldn't want to see that.
All right, so before we close out, Scientist Mel, Tony was kind enough to send me the paper again, and effectively,
Awesome.
I was correct. It appears to directly infect the secondary lymphoid organs and can kill off the cells that way. It also claims that they also trigger macrophages to produce IL-6, pro-inflammatory cytokine that can promote lymphocyte necrosis.
Okay.
So basically, it fucks with your spleen like hardcore.
I'm not surprised. There's so much we haven't learned yet. There are people that have kidney failure, and it's causing strokes in kids.
Yeah, that seems to be like the new information I'm seeing, is just all the different ways it seems to affect people differently. It's kind of odd.
It's not so much the virus that kills you; it's the cytokine storms that cause systematic organ shutdown.
Well, and for people that are autoimmune, there's this interesting, and I had this symptom, so I've been talking to people a lot about it. It can cause something very similar to neuropathy, where your nerves will fire off and cause incredible amounts of pain because of the inflammation all over your body from your body overreacting to it.
But hey, we need to go back to those bars and get us a drink.
Yeah, I gotta go get a haircut.
Having had this in my house, I'm going to reiterate the thing I say at the end of every stream where COVID is even remotely mentioned. Y'all don't want this shit. Don't leave your house unless you have to. Wear a fucking mask if you do.
All right. With that, we've got to start. We've got to shut her down and do our shills. My daughter is flipping out. She will not go to bed until she shows me what she made for me in my bedroom. I am scared.
Knock is scared. You guys heard it. It wasn't a Christian that brought him down. It was his daughter. He's scared of a woman.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to be very happy.
Yes.
All right. All right. So, do you got anything coming up? I guess we'll let Scientist Mel go first.
Sure.
I don't have anything. So, Allie, whatever you guys are doing, and then, outside of my Sky Out thing, we already plugged that.
Well, Scientist Melly, you should probably give a plug to your channel because number one, Knock actually got it in the description. He's getting a trend. He might actually start to be responsible enough where I don't have to comment on it anymore.
It's becoming a routine. If I can just put my darned original videos for my responses like everybody wants me to do, I'll be happy.
Yeah, you find reasons to not be happy, Knock. Let's face it.
It's like writing all over again. When I was a writer, I was my biggest critic. And now I'm far harder on myself than any Christian could ever be on me.
See, I'm the same way with my content. I'll sit there, oh God, I'm really boring right there. I need to not ever do that again.
Yeah, it's like a learning experience.
It is. So every Saturday, I didn't go last Saturday because I was really sick and I was on some deadlines for work. This Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Central, I have essentially Saturday morning science with my show, The Science of. from time to time, I have a show on Sundays called This Week in BS, where it's bad science. We talk about bad science.
That is a brilliant name.
This Week in BS is like bad science. So this Saturday, I'm not certain what my topic will be, but I have games and I hand out Streamlabs points. I have 3 T-shirts that people have won, so they're sending me their information, and so you can get Streamlabs points by just watching my show. I call them Mel's Minions points. And then you can cash them in. And then we have like a game portion where it's like a Wheel of Fortune thing. And then if you're in the chat and you get to play along, I add those points up and we keep up with them. And you too can win some Scientist Mel merch. So we just have a lot of fun.
Scientist Mel merch, okay?
Scientist Mel merch. And we have a lot of fun. Sometimes I talk about the latest developments in COVID-19. And one episode I talked about how vaccines were made and that sort of thing. I probably need to go back through and talk about maybe a bit more about the immune system, maybe autoimmune disease. I have covered these topics before, but they've been in different formats, and we're always learning new things. And so I'll bring in what the latest science is. Sometimes I just pull up, this is what's happened this week in science, and we break it down. And sometimes I'll talk about a really bad study. Somebody sent me a study on Twitter, and then they showed up in my side chat, and it was great. I'm like, you know what? I read that. Let's talk about why it's wrong. And then I just pull it up, and I'm like, look at this. This is where they got it wrong. This isn't even published. This is this here. And then we go through and I help you kind of learn how to get those eyes to spot that stuff. So check us out. It's a lot of fun. 10 a.m. Central on Saturdays. youtube.com/scientistmel. You can find me there.
So as far as stuff on my end, I'm going to be moderating his Sky Out shit show on Saturday, so that's exciting. A little less exciting and more depressing. Within the next week or so, over on Sticks and Stonehenge, we are going to be releasing the statement about Thomas of Tibber, the aforementioned pedophile serial sexual harasser, who is, again, no longer associated with our channel and hasn't been for over a year, but unfortunately was trying to use getting kicked out of our channel as an excuse to basically elicit sympathy from his victims and stop them from reporting him to us and other people and coming out with their stories. So we're going to be talking about it, and the person who he groomed for 2 years, who just recently turned 18, is going to be talking about her experience. So we're hoping to get that out in an organized fashion, and then a couple weeks later, we're going to bring her on to have a conversation about it, along with potentially, I have written statements already from a couple of other people that had experienced negative things with him. So those will be right at the beginning of that stream, and we may have a couple of people who have had experience with him, including one member of the kink community who wanted to debunk some of the stuff that he had said about it in his defense. To kind of talk about that. So like we're gonna be doing that. It's a really depressing, this is gonna be a heavily moderated stream. We're gonna be talking about serial sexual harassment and grooming and pedophilia. It's gonna be a hard fucking topic, and in the SNS video, I'm gonna be moderating the hell out of those comments. If you want to be an asshole, that's not the video to do it on.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Yeah, it's great conversation. Thank you for coming on, Scientist Mel.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, it was great. We gotta do the part Ali didn't get to, so we'll have to have you back on, and we'll do that soon. I am really trying to get to. My daughter's just trying to distract me. I'm trying to get on schedule and really get this thing to where I can announce them a lot earlier. People can know who's going to be on a lot earlier than what I've been doing. Get organized. Organization, everybody. It is a wonderful thing. Want to thank everybody for being here, joining this conversation tonight. Again, Saturday, Sky Out. Enough said. You've seen it before. Probably won't be anything new. I don't know. He's been gone for like 6 months. He hasn't been saying anything, doing anything. So maybe he wrote a new script. This could be fun. So yeah, Saturday night, Praise will be coming back on soon, and I think I'm gonna be trying to get up the merch store and figuring out the side chat Streamlabs, getting that going so people can actually donate. Like you know, since super chats have been gone, everybody asked about super chats. Like they weren't asking when I had them. But I want to thank everybody for being here, and as always, be the conversation. Let me pull this up. I actually fixed my Patreon screen today, so I'm super excited about that. I think I've ignored somebody for a while. So Will Warman, again, I apologize. I didn't see you on Patreon for like the longest time, I think. The rasp in my voice. Don't smoke, people. That's my next goal. I'm literally going to try to stop smoking in the next week. I've got a date on my calendar. If I can make it longer than a day, I'll do better than I've ever done before. So we'll see. We'll see. I make no promises. But we're going to get out of here, guys. Thanks, patrons. And thank you, Scientist Mo.
Thank you.
All right.